Declare the council meeting open and welcome everybody here this evening. I'd like to remind everyone, in accordance with the council's code of meeting practice, other than the public forum section, this meeting was being live streamed. The acknowledgement of country and prayer of council and affirmation will be read by Father Anthony Morgan from St George and Prince Tados Coptic Orthodox Church. If you could all be upstanding, and that will be followed by the national anthem.
Good evening, everyone. Acknowledgement of country. Before we begin proceedings, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and their ancestors, past and present. The Cabrogal clan of Darug Nation. We acknowledge that this land was also accessed by peoples of the Darawal and Darak nations. Affirmation of council. We affirm our hope and dedication to the good government of our city and the well-being of all Liverpool's residents, no matter their race or creed. Tonight we affirm our hope for sound decision-making by council, which will improve the quality of life in our city. We express our expectations and best wishes for Australia, our nation's future, the mayor, councillors and staff of council, and all those associated good government in Liverpool. We pray, Almighty God, thank you for our life, our health, and the opportunity to serve within the local government of Liverpool. Send your Spirit to touch the hearts of our leaders. Endow the spirit of wisdom on our mayor, councillors and all the staff that serve at Liverpool City Council with the familiar words, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Accept the great goodness that our council strives for and its decisions it makes for the greater goodness of the city of Liverpool. Inspire our leaders to increase the prosperity of whom they represent. Grant each member talents by which they multiply their fruits. May we please you, O our God, this day, and hear us, Almighty God. Amen. Thank you.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing. Advance Australia fair. Beneath our radiant Southern Cross, we'll toil with hearts and hands to make this commonwealth of ours renowned of all the lands. For those who've come across the seas, we've boundless place to share. With courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair. Thank you.
Do we have any apologies? No apologies. Condolences. Councillor Hall, you have a condolence?
Sorry, Mayor, I was under the impression that...
Yes, I thought I'd be doing one, but my notes aren't here, so you have more notes than I have.
Thank you. What I would like to... Condolences for John Eastwood. John Eastwood was I guess you could say, the heart and soul of Yada. And I have met him many times, as I'm sure have many councillors. I think the work that he did for the community and for the Young Adults Disabled Association, the man has actually won numerous awards. I believe he's got the Order of Liverpool Award. He's also had several awards by the member for Hughes and also the member for Menai, as it was then, Holsworthy now. John, I will quickly read this. So much to say about our friend, but due to restrictions of time, one favourite verse of John's, the dash, is contained within this rhyme. Arrived on earth May 5th, 1943. Arrived in heaven September 10th, 2019. To us, what matters most of all is the dash between those years. The dash represents the time John spent living here on earth. All of you who've met him know what that little dash is worth. It mattered not how little he owned. His life was not ruled by cash. What mattered, how he lived and loved, and with you shared his dash. John has joined a very short queue, a select group that sits and waits. He wears a jacket printed on the back, "Don't let him recycle the pearly gates." Not a saint, but a genuine crusader. He sought for others a better life, supporting those with disability, easing their families' worry and strife. Always there with a kind word, a hug, or just telling us a joke. In our life of never-ending doubt, he was one of our trusted folk. John believed, be less quick to anger, show appreciation more, love the people in your life like you've never loved before. He adored his Yada kids as their champion, took them under his wing, dressing up cheers and laughter whilst mentoring them to dance and sing. Sometimes you'd catch him in a world of his own. He was always thinking, when asked, "How you going, John?" His favourite reply, flat out like a lizard drinking. Life isn't a matter of milestones, but moments. Our outings, trips and more. Time is your life. The greatest gifts you can give someone is yours. Not a man of many talents, John gave 100% in all the things he tried. He made a difference in our life, one he started with pride. Treat each other with respect, more often wear a smile. Remember that your special dash might only last a little while. When your eulogy is read, with your life's actions to rehash, will you be proud of the things said about how you lived your dash? As co-founder of Yada, John's insight, dedication and empathy made positive changes in all their lives. We are truly grateful for his legacy. John Eastwood, Aka, Big John, Johnny Boy, Daddy will be missed beyond comprehension. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Did anybody else wish to make any comments?
I'll add something short. He, like a lot of great men, he was a tragic South supporter. So I think that's worth mentioning.
Okay, well, I'm happy to second that the normal condolences be sent to his family. Thank you very much, Councillor Hall. The next item on our agenda is our public speaking section, and we have a presentation by Ms Jennifer French, who wants to talk about the traffic crisis in Liverpool. Right. Declarations of interest?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I also have a declaration, please.
Yes, Councillor, what is it?
So my one is in regards to EGRO 2 on page 99.
Yeah.
My husband and I own a property in Moorebank that may or may not be affected.
Okay. You've got the form there, Councillor? Okay. George, if you could supply the forms. Anybody else has any pecuniary interest? Yes, Councillor Hall. 1 minute, Councillor Chitty. Councillor Hall.
Sorry, me first?
Yes, you've got
yes,
the nod.
EGRO 04, Warwick Farm. It's the LEP and we're talking about Warwick Farm.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chitty.
EGRO 05, non-pecuniary, less than significant. I own property in Leppington North, although on the Camden side. Nothing to do with this report, but given that it mentions Leppington North, I will flag it.
Okay, thank you. Any other conflicts?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. EGRO 03, in relation to the Liverpool and District Historical Society. I am an ordinary member of the Historical Society. Strictly, I don't have to get up and leave. Non-pecuniary, not significant, but I'll leave in any event.
Thank you so much.
Madam Mayor, I'd also like to declare an interest in IGRO 03, as I'm also an ordinary member of the Liverpool and Districts Historical Society. I will also leave the room for that item.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I have a conflict as well. It's EGRO 03 as well, and I'm also a member of the Historical Society. I will leave the room.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any others?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to declare a less than pecuniary interest in EGRO 05, is it? The Historical Society.
3.
I am not a current financial member,
Okay.
but I have been a financial member in the past.
All right. Thank you. Any others? Thank you. Can you just all make sure you fill in your forms and give them to George, please? I'm sorry to just keep you waiting. The previous minutes, I'm going to put them. Somebody like to move them?
Yeah, move adoption. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Shelton, seconded Councillor Hull. I'll put it those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Thank you. Ms French, sorry for the delay.
All right. Madam Mayor and councillors, the problem
CEO 01 and CEO 02 be moved to the end of the order of business, as it is business which is relating to council bookkeeping, if you like, and there are other items that members in the audience here are very much interested in.
Well, you can formally move that. Have you got a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Hall. I will put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? I declare it lost. So it was a tie and I'm actually voting against it. So we will go with the agenda. So the next item on the agenda is the election of the Deputy Mayor.
I move that we go to secret ballot.
Seconder?
I will second.
Thank you.
Foreshadow, Mayor, that we do it in open ballot, and I'll speak to it.
All right. Well, we'll put I think we know what it means. Those in favour of a secret ballot, please raise your hands.
Can I speak against?
Oh, if you wish, Councillor.
Mayor.
Sorry, councillors, go ahead, sir. Councillor.
Yeah, I'll speak against the motion and speak really then, if it does get up, for the open ballot. This is in the election for the Deputy Mayor, and there are people sitting in the audience here today who are really interested in their items, not ours, but we said we'll do ours first. Why not let them see which way councillors are voting, and why not let them see who's voting for the next Deputy Mayor? We talk about transparency, we talk about being open. We have residents sitting here now that just want to see how we operate. It's a simple vote, it's for the Deputy Mayor. I think everyone knows what everyone's doing. Why not let everyone see what's going on, how we vote these things? And I think if you vote in a closed ballot, you know, what have you got to hide? If you do have anything, I'm not making any allegations about anyone, but why not do it in open while everyone's sitting here?
Thank you, councillor. Anybody wish to speak for the motion? The secret ballot motion? Nope. Okay, given there's no other speakers, I'll put it. Those in favour of a secret ballot? Those against? Declare it carried. Secret ballot it is. I'll hand over to the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to make a final call for nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor for the period 25th of September 2019 to 12th of September 2020. Do I have any further nominations? No, I declare that closed. I have two nominees. If Council staff, Mr Georgiakis, can please prepare the nomination forms. Our nominees for the position of Deputy Mayor are Councillor Ali Khanib and Councillor Peter Hall. We'll just prepare the forms as it's gone to secret ballot.
Mayor, can I move that we move it to the end, given that they need to prepare forms and we get on with business, given that there is
We'll move
residents?
it. I'm quite comfortable moving it to the end of the actual report. So we have the next item is the appointment of councillors to committees and affiliated bodies.
Yeah, Mayor, I would like to move, I don't have a list of names, but I'd like to move it as per the current one, the current list, with one exception. I nominate Councillor Hachidi to the Libraries Committee.
Are you willing to take that nomination, Councillor?
Given that Councillor Haggerty is nominating me, absolutely not.
Sorry, and one other change.
Yes.
You, Madam Mayor, are the delegate to the Traffic Committee, but your rep is Councillor Caliander.
Yes.
I will take Councillor Caliander's spot.
Okay, then.
So two changes.
I'm comfortable with that nomination. I'm happy if I'm represented by Councillor Haggerty. Okay.
Madam Mayor, may I just confirm who's on the Aboriginal Consultative Committee currently?
I attend. Councillor Sheldon attends.
It's the Mayor or her delegate, but she does attend. Yourself, Councillor, and Councillor Shelton.
Madam Mayor, I must apologise. I have a conflict with that meeting time. I've had it all year. It conflicts with another committee that I'm on.
Okay.
So I will not be able to attend.
That's fine. How many delegates are there on the committee?
That one is the Mayor and one councillor by charter, however,
So
more
two.
councillors.
Okay, so that's fine, Councillor. We've got the two, so that's okay. Any comments on the recommendation as made by Councillor Haggerty?
We need someone for the Library Committee.
The Library Committee, who would like to be on the Library Committee? It's a very good committee. Well, how about we
Fine, I'll
leave...
stay on.
Okay, councillor, thank you. All right. Who would like to second the nominations as put by council?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, councillor Shelton. Is there any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, are carried. How are we going with ballots? Ballots done?
They're just coming out of the
All right, we'll do the next item, which is ward boundaries.
Could I move
That
a
might
motion?
take a while. Okay, so that's on page 56.
Yeah, I'll move a motion, Mayor.
Yes, councillor, what is your motion?
Number 1, as per the book.
Number 1.
I'll second, Madam Mayor.
Can I?
Getting there.
And number 2 is adopt ward boundary plan number 1.
Number 1. Okay, so moved by councillor Chitty. and-
Plan to be submitted to the New South Wales Electoral Commission and the rest of the...
Okay, so
the work.
moved by councillor Chitty and seconded by councillor Ayard that option 1 be the selection. Do you wish to speak to that, councillor?
all good unless there's any...
Well, I'll ask, is there any opposition?
Yes, I would like to foreshadow, same as councillor Chitty, but option 5.
5.
I will second.
That's a foreshadowed, so you have to hold your horses. Okay, well, do you wish to speak against that then, councillor Haggerty? That might be the best way to clear the air.
Yeah, so I think option 5 is the way to go. In terms, for a number of reasons. One is geographically, it's the smallest area being changed, which means, I guess, less effort in terms of informing people who've moved boundaries. Yes, it's based on population, but it's a smaller area to carry, to move. Therefore, it'll be cheaper. Because it's near the CBD, residents that live in that area will probably see other alerts and notifications about it. Again, making it cheaper. And just from my experience of standing on a poll booth, it's a lot easier to explain to people where they are. So someone will come up to you and you say, where do you live? And they'll say, I live in Liverpool. And you go, what side of the street do you live in? And then you have to look at it on the map. Whereas with this option, you go, where do you live? And they say Liverpool. And you go, bang, you're in North Ward. So it makes it much easier. And then I think the most convincing reason is in terms of the population projections. This option, based on population projections, won't need to be rejigged until at least 2040. So when we won't need to come back, we won't need to have another vote. It'll be set in stone for some time. And my understanding is that based on the public submissions, this is also the overwhelming view of the LGA.
Thank you, councillor. So we've had a speaker against. Is there any speakers for? All right, I'm going to put the motion as moved by councillor Chitty and seconded by councillor Ayard, which is option 1. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. The next item is back to the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, we've now distributed your voting papers. As you vote, if you can put your hand in the air and I'll ask Mr Stevenson to bring round the box. You just put a cross or a tick, it doesn't matter which one, in your, as there are only 2 nominations, in whoever you choose to vote for. Mr Stevenson, can you bring the box?
Has councillor Caliendo completed her vote yet? Yes, she's still thinking. Well, she's taking it very seriously. Okay, well, Councillor Caliano, can I progress with the agenda because I'm sure the CEO will take a little while to do the count. The next item's on page 86. Someone like to move a motion, page 86?
I have a question, Madam Mayor, about
Yes,
that.
certainly, Councillor.
With the elections, with we choosing who should we get to actually run them for us, is there any opportunity within the election rules for us to reduce pre-polling times to 1 week? No. Have less polling stations?
No.
No.
Well, if you go with a private firm, your polling stations may vary, but there's a lot of things controlled by the Electoral Commission itself.
Is that? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yes, Mayor. Question, I raised it in the briefing session. My concerns are around the tender process. Given that there's more than just one person that can conduct these elections, we're pretty much saying here that we're agreeing, I know it's in principle, to go with this people without testing the market to see what the cost would be. Am I correct in what I'm reading?
I'll ask for the comment.
Yes and no, Councillor. There's only 2 potential providers, and we have got a quote from the other provider for the purposes of comparison. The advice, as per the recommendation, is that that you give in principle support to the New South Wales Electoral Commission for the reasons that are stated in the report. But I appreciate your concerns, and we have got a quote from the other potential provider.
So, do we have that here?
Mr. Georgiakis, can you provide? That was provided to councillors. Yeah.
Through the CEO, there was an email sent yesterday to the councillors. It was the responses to the questions taken on notice from last week's briefing session, and subsequent to that, that email advised that we had contacted Fairfield City Council and discussed with them who they've been using, which they told us. We contacted that provider. They provided us with a cost estimate early this week, which was provided to councillors. We were hoping to have the cost estimates from the New South Wales Electoral Commission confirmed before tonight's meeting to be able to further provide councillors with the comparison, but unfortunately that hasn't been forthcoming. So that's why the sheet that I've left on your tables, on your desks tonight, gives you that further update to let you know that although we've got the cost estimate from the other provider that Fairfield uses, we don't have the Electoral Commission's costs confirmed yet to enable us to compare the two.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
I would like to, per the book.
Per the book, moving the book. Seconded by?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. I think we all understand it. It's fairly clear. I'll put it. Those in favour of the book. Those against, declare it carried. Thank you. Over to the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is my great pleasure to announce that we do have a winner for the position of Deputy Mayor of Liverpool City Council for the term 25th of September 2019 to the 12th of September 2020, and that is Councillor Ali Khanib. Please join me in congratulating Councillor Khanib. Can we please have a motion that Councillor Ali Khanib be declared the Deputy Mayor of Liverpool City Council for the term 25th September 2019 to 12th of September 2020, the Council's Register of Delegations be amended accordingly, and that all ballot papers be collected, which has been done and will be destroyed by myself as the Returning Officer.
Moved that way by Councillor Sheldon, seconded by Councillor Balut, who's chewing away there merrily on his minty.
Many congratulations.
I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. That was a procedural motion anyway, councillors.
Thank you, and I'll now return the chairing of the meeting to the Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'm conscious that we did not change the agenda, but we do have in our audience tonight Dr. Webb, who is here tonight to talk about the mosquito, or is here as a to answer any questions from the councillors regarding the mosquito management plan. So, given that he is here and willing to answer questions from councillors, I am going to bring this particular item forward. It's Prezzo 1 in your addendum booklet, and it's on page 106. Addendum booklet, 106. Dr. Webb, if you want to stand at the where I've lost him. There he is. I found him. No, there may not be any questions about the mosquitoes, but they have been a bit pesty and causing a lot of unhappiness. The motion is on page 106. Would someone please formally move?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I will second.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. Thank you, Councillor Caliander. Do any councillors have anything they wish to ask?
I do, and I thank staff for answering this, but given that we've got him here, we may as well go as well. My concern is more around the way that we spray these mosquitoes, and I know in some places they use the helicopter, it just sprays everywhere. Now, staff has responded, but given that you're here, what are the issues with doing one of those helicopter sprays pretty much across, up and down the river on both sides? There are residents there, there's industry there. What's the risk of doing that?
So to clarify, the recommendation that's in that report is that there's ground-based spraying of those habitats, and the reason for that is that the area is relatively small and you avoid the problems of having to fly a helicopter in close proximity to residential areas and some of the legislation around that. Helicopter application does work quite successfully at Sydney Olympic Park and other areas in far north New South Wales and southeast Queensland, where there are far more extensive areas that need to be treated, many hundreds of hectares. But as this is a more concentrated area and it's underneath the canopy of some woodland along the river, it's a much more effective way to apply the product.
Any other questions?
Can I ask two questions? Thank you, Madam Mayor. Doctor, just for the sake of the argument, if one council pursues such activities without other councils abutting onto the Georges River, cooperating and collaborating at the same time, what is the likely effect going to be?
I think a collaborative approach would be certainly much better in the longer term, but based on the local council's areas here, we've identified an area that is highly productive for mosquitoes. Those mosquitoes coming out of those areas are very aggressive biters and are potential transmitting pathogens such as Ross River virus, and they spread quite widely from the area. So you could have a tangible benefit to local communities within council area adjacent to those wetlands. It could be a very effective way to do it. In a broader sense, of course, collaboration would be a way forward.
And the second question, if I may, which did come up in the briefing session, we hear about other insect populations being a threat, particularly bee populations. What would be the effect, if any, in relation to this spraying program with respect to other populations? In other words, to what extent is it selective and to what extent is it non-selective?
So the product that's recommended in the report is a bacterial-based product called Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. And it differs quite markedly from the type of insecticides that you would use in your home to control flies or cockroaches or ants. And so rather than being a contact poison on the insects, the immature stages of the mosquito actually have to consume the toxin to die. So the mode of action is much more specific to mosquitoes. Because you're applying it to the water where the mosquito wrigglers or the immature stages are, you can minimise some of the impact to other insects. And so generally speaking, this is probably one of the more ecologically sustainable ways to control mosquitoes. And by point of reference, we've used this for over 20 years at Sydney Olympic Park, and we've had no reports of any significant non-target impacts on other insect or animal life.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes?
My question is, how certain are we that the area that has been identified for the biting mosquitoes, how certain are we that this is a really important site for them and there is not other important sites within the Georges River area? And what impact would it have if we've only hit one of the sites and there's other sites within the Georges River? What do you think will be the impact of missing those other sites?
So primarily the other sites that are along the Georges River are outside the local government area, and they are much further closer down towards Picnic Point and Lugano and Alfred's Point. Within council area, those wetland areas identified in the report are the most productive habitats, and the mosquitoes coming out of there, by controlling those, you will have an impact on reducing the number of mosquito bites that people are getting in those suburbs nearby. In terms of the river as a whole, a more coordinated approach would certainly be required, but for council area, applications there would be very, very useful. And we're confident that that is the area that is what we might refer to as a hotspot of mosquito activity, because there's characteristics about the environment there that are conducive to these mosquitoes. Water pools there after rain and tidal inundation, which is typical of this mosquito pest, which is the problem. We also know this mosquito flies a long way from its wetlands, over 3 kilometres, and so that's why the mosquitoes coming out of that area would impact the suburbs nearby, such as Holsworthy right through to Chipping Norton and Wattle Grove.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Hold on. Yes, Councillor Haggerty, you haven't had a go.
Yep. I put forward the original motion, so I just want to thank staff, in particular Peter and his team and Cameron for the work you've done to get this back so quick. I think we put it up in April and we knew that we sort of had the clock ticking before mosquito season arrived again. I guess, was last season a freak season? What led to such large numbers, and will we see a repeat of that, given the effects of climate change? We'll get sort of warmer, wetter, longer summers.
Yeah, it's a complicated question to answer, but generally there's a number of factors that contributed to mosquito populations last year being problematic. Mosquito populations fluctuate year to year depending on rainfall, temperature, tides and things like that. Last year was quite unique in that some of the mosquitoes that were causing a nuisance were coming out of some of the wetlands around Liverpool, Horseshoe Lagoon and Sydney Waterside. We've been working closely with those authorities to control mosquito populations, so hopefully that won't be contributing to mosquito problems this summer. The mosquito sites identified in the report, populations there will change a little bit from year to year, and there's no reason to suggest those mosquitoes won't differ in this coming summer or others, and the reason why we recommended control to be undertaken in those areas. But a final point on that, one of the recommendations in the report that was council participated in New South Wales Health's mosquito and mosquito-borne disease surveillance program that will provide data to the council on how mosquito populations are fluctuating in future. That will again help with management.
Thank you. Councillor Sheldon.
Yes, just one further thing, if I may. The report before us suggests that we allocate $30,000 to the operational plan in relation to this. Is it within your expertise to comment as to the sufficiency of that sum?
I think based on what is recommended to start, it's quite reasonable. We're focusing mosquito control. It's recommended that you focus control in these areas and what can be learned from the effectiveness of that, together with some additional mosquito monitoring. I think they can shape more sort of cost-effective and expansion or contraction of the program in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Pichity? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Councillor Rhodes, are you wanting to ask a question? No? Okay, Councillor Add. Just working out all the lights.
Thank you. I just want to know a little bit about Ross River fever and how it affects, namely, the elderly, children, people that are immunocompromised. What are the symptoms? What are the health impacts?
So Ross River virus is spread by mosquitoes, and it causes the most common mosquito-borne disease reported in Australia. We get about 5,000 cases across Australia every year. There are up to thousands of cases in New South Wales, sometimes hundreds in metropolitan Sydney. The risk for Ross River virus is mostly at the fringes of the metropolitan area. The reason for that is that mosquitoes don't hatch out of the wetlands carrying the virus. They have to bite wildlife first before they pick that up. And so the mosquitoes generally pick the virus up from kangaroos, wallabies, because of the abundance of that wildlife along the Georges River National Park. That's one of the reasons why we see local transmission and activity of that virus. If you're infected with the virus, you get a range of symptoms that can be highly variable: fever, rash, headache, joint pain. Sometimes that illness can last for many weeks or months. And so we generally find that young people don't, if they're exposed to the virus, they don't develop the illness. We don't really know why that is. But certainly for the elderly, some of the arthritic pain and fatigue can be quite significant. And as I said before, the symptoms can be highly variable. Some people will feel they have a mild case of the flu, other people almost bedridden for weeks or months.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, two
Yes,
more.
Councillor Chitty.
Yeah, two more.
Yep.
Obviously, we can do all this, but if residents, and I know we've got the community strategy to talk to them, has there been one in particular that's been used elsewhere that's worked quite well to engage the community, just to let them know what's going on and how to, do their part as well? That's the first one.
Yeah, so I think it's really critical that there's an integrated approach to try to control the impact of mosquitoes in the local area, because we actually have dozens of different mosquitoes, and as the councillor points out, one of the key issues are mosquitoes coming out of people's backyards, which are a different type than would be coming out of the wetlands. Education of the community with ideas on how they can reduce the production of mosquitoes from the backyard is a common element of education that New South Wales Health do on a statewide basis, and I think there's a great advantage in council being more targeted and regionally specific with that advice to the community, and maybe assist them reducing the amount of mosquitoes that are coming out of their yard and taking measures when they're outdoors to safely protect themselves and family from mosquito bites.
And I suppose the second question, I take it mosquitoes were around before climate change became the in thing to talk about?
Mosquitoes have been around for much longer than us, and certainly I think they'll be around for much longer after us. But I think it's mindful that we do sort of consider a changing climate, because one of the real tangible impacts that we've observed in Sydney is an extension of the mosquito season. I'm now seeing mosquitoes far more abundant in spring, and I'm finding them far more abundant into autumn. And so while we may not see an arrival of malaria and dengue into the local government area, we will see an extension of the mosquito season that might bring with it more cases of mosquito-borne disease.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just
Yes,
one
Councillor.
question. Just following on from Councillor Chitty's question about community education programs, has there been sort of engagement with culturally and linguistically diverse groups that have been successful in New South Wales Health's experience?
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question, and it's something that we haven't been very good at, and I've been advocating for with Health Department. There are many parts of New South Wales where we have a range of different communities, and I don't think that they're being engaged properly with the messages that we're sending. And so I think that's one of the reasons why Liverpool could take a leading role in this, in showing how we can have different ways to engage our communities and work out what can best kind of work in terms of changing their behaviour and hopefully changing exposure to mosquitoes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, then I appreciate you making yourself available, and that was genuinely very informative. I don't like mosquitoes personally. Okay, I'm going to put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Thank you. Next item's on page 92 in your normal book.
Can I move a motion, Mayor?
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
One is the book. To determine that the Mayor, Councillor Kellyander, Councillor Hadid be the members of the delegation. 3 is the book, 4 is the book.
I'll just ask the councillors that are mentioned whether they're happy to be on that delegation. You are, Councillor? Right, okay. All right then. Seconder?
Happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any opposition? That might be the best way to do this. Okay, no opposition. I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Councillor Rhodes, can you turn off your light? Thank you. I keep thinking you need to speak. The next item's on page 100.
Move that way.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haggerty, seconder. Councillor Carney.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, is that IGRA 02 on 99?
Yep.
Yeah, I have to leave.
All right, no worries. We can wait.
I'll let you wait till she goes.
Okay. We've got a mover and a seconder. Is there any discussion?
I've got some questions.
Certainly, Councillor. What are your questions?
The first question is, can I just have some clarity about the gateway determination before community consultation? I mean, after the community consultation, if there's changes to this, does it have to go back for gateway approval again?
Mr Moore, can you speak to that?
Thank you. Through the CEO, the usual order of things is that gateway determination comes first and then community consultation comes second. That's how we proceed with all planning proposals that we ask council to endorse. And to answer the second part of your question, no, it doesn't need to go back for gateway determination. There's scope to be able to accommodate the views of the community, work those into the planning proposal, in this case an overall review of our LEP, and then put that back to the Department of Planning with a recommendation to make the amendments to the LEP.
Another question, if you'll bear with me, is that I notice in the report that it says that we've got a shortage of industrial land, and yet it is also stated that there is 7 hectares of available industrial land that has remained unoccupied for a decade in the Warwick Farm industrial site. Does that seem normal if we've got a shortage of industrial land, that there's been industrial land in that particular area which has been empty for 10 years?
Mr Moore, are you happy to answer that?
Certainly, through the CEO. I think what we're saying in the report is that overall there is a shortage of industrial land on a broad scale across the local government area. Industrial land that is well serviced with all infrastructure, I guess, including water and sewage infrastructure, but importantly road infrastructure. So there are some pockets of industrial land close to the CBD in places like Warwick Farm, but from our broad assessment, and that was an assessment done by a consultant earlier this year, there's not enough of it. We need large footprint industrial land to accommodate major freight and logistics type operations, and there's not sufficient of that at the moment in the local government area. So that's what the report is identifying.
On page 1163 of Book 4, of the attachment Book 4, you're talking about what is commonly called the Warwick Farm precinct, below Shrivner Street, that you have identified as possible education, health, innovation precinct. That's where that industrial land has been vacant for 10 years. But I also note that then you go on to say, rezoning should also seek to consider approaches to transitioning the adjoining low-density residential zone to possible B6 enterprise corridor zone. And I also note in the report there's been considerable mention of Moorebank, and I thank Council for that. But this is the only place that I can find in the report where you've mentioned the Warwick Farm Racing Precinct area as that being from Shrivner Street up to the Hume Highway boundary. And clearly, Council has held consultation with the community from that particular area, and clearly they have stated over and over again that they wanted B4 in line with the state government's objectives to enable residential development close to the Warwick Farm station. My question is, I just wonder why we're not putting that into this report.
Mr Moore, are you happy to speak to the timing aspect of that?
Certainly. This recommendation for you is to adopt a first phase of amendments to the LEP, and it runs in parallel with the adoption of the local strategic planning statement, the higher level, longer term strategic planning document applying to the whole of the local government area. In the local strategic planning statement, which has been adopted by Council for exhibition, the exhibition has been closed and we're now going through an assurance process with the Greater Sydney Commission. That quite clearly identifies what it is you were referring to then, Councillor, that is that Warwick Farm, the Warwick Farm area, the horse training area, should accommodate a mixture of uses, whether it's B4 or some other zone to accommodate employment, retail and housing, is noted in the local strategic planning statement. So, notwithstanding the points that you referred to in this report, in a second phase amendment to the LEP, which we're targeting to happen through the course of next year, we'll be seeking to align the LEP with what is said in the local strategic planning statement once that has been finally adopted.
What does council laws have to do to make sure that council fully understands that we are not in agreement, the constituents are not in agreement of the Warwick Farm precinct? They have told us on endless occasions that they're not interested in your particular views of what should be in that area.
Point of order.
That they are interested.
Please be quiet, Councillor Rhodes. There's a point of order. Yes.
I don't think they're Mr. Moore's views. I think they're the collective views of, overriding strategic documents, the councillors who have been in a number of workshops, and community feedback.
So I uphold that point of order. Councillor, you need to retract that statement.
I'll retract that
Thank
statement,
you.
Madam Mayor.
Continue.
The question then would perhaps be better put. I'm having difficulty in understanding whoever first mentioned that type of zoning for that area. And when was it mentioned? Because I bear in mind that councillors have received an email when we were in consultation with the people from Warwick Farm from one constituent that stated that he was shocked at the idea of B4 and called it a spot zoning, when this was the first time that councillors had been engaged. It was the first time that the constituents had been engaged in putting forward their ideas about what they thought would be best for that particular zoning area. So I'm just having difficulty understanding how we've ended up in this position, that we have a suggestion for a zoning in that particular area that has not been supported through the workshops, has not been supported through the consultation with the community.
Councillor, I'm going to take that as speaking against, because you are actually entering into debate, and it's a lengthy. A question is very short and succinct, and you have actually entered a debate, but that's fine. That's why I didn't
Put simply,
ask you.
Madam Mayor, can I ask who was the person who collaborated for that area to be what council is proposing?
The CEO wishes to answer that question.
Councillor, it's a complicated question because there are a number of statutory planning documents that affect decisions that councils can make. The broad answer to your question is that there is a chapter in the Western Sydney District Plan which is very clear about being very precautionary around industrial and employment lands. That's a specific direction in the district plan, of which we are one of 8 councils that's subject to, which is adopted by the Planning Minister of the New South Wales Government. Any planning proposals must be considered in relation to the district plan. So that really answers your question. So the district plan details that. The collaboration area is then the greater expression of the district plan, which is a protection of the industrial and employment lands. Council have given a different direction. We are attempting to undertake the studies that would be able to make that case against the direction of the district plan.
And when would that be presented in such a, or exhibited to the community? That we
Okay, so there's a number of studies that will be required to support a proposal for land use changes, specifically traffic and flooding. They're the two complicated ones because they were part of the reason that that no proposed zoning changes were made through the collaboration area. The place strategy outlines what needs to be done and the timeframes for their completion. We are anticipating completing the studies around the end of 2019, probably at the earliest because we start to go into the silly season. And to meet our funding commitment for phase 1 to be completed with DPIE by the end of October, we can't include that request in this phase of the LEP review. It needs to be included in the phase 2 review. If we held it back, we would have to potentially have to return the funding that we've received through an accelerated review.
In view of that then, can we do something about the paragraph that is in there where we have the actual possible B6 enterprise corridor zone excluded from it?
You're asking the question
Mr.
of whether
Smith,
that
can
can be
you
excluded.
speak to that?
through the CEO, the report that you're referring to is the report from our consultant. So it's a study, it's a recommendation. We're not proposing any changes in the Warwick Farm precinct through phase one, as the CEO and the director advised, but the comment that you're referring to on page 1164 of the addendum booklet is a study about options that council may wish to consider. It's certainly not a strategy or a policy of the council, it just gives opportunities.
Would it not be possible to include that council also considers B4 zoning for that particular area?
I think at this point, Councillor, I'm not going to allow this to continue. You're asking for planning decisions to be made on the hop, and I'm not comfortable with that at all. I would suggest you put that particular question to a strategic panel, and that way it can be actually looked at in a proper way. Now, any other debate or question?
Which I've given notice to the CEO on in round terms. Are you aware of any council officer in any meeting that they've attended go against the wishes of council in their presentations relating to Warwick Farm?
Councillor, planning officers don't determine what council do. Councillors
sorry,
determine
just
that.
in relation to that, not planning officers, any staff member in any meeting that they've attended on behalf of council go against the wishes of a council resolution in what that area should look like.
It's a difficult
point of order
question to
Excuse
answer,
me.
Councillor, because
CEO, shush. Point of order. What is your point of order, Councillor?
I'm uncomfortable with that wording. You know, someone can be asked what their opinion outside of work is on X, and they give their opinion, which may be different to...
Point of order, Mayor. I don't.
Hold on a minute, Councillor. I haven't ruled on the first one, so just hold your horses. Yes, keep going.
Yeah, I'm just uncomfortable.
So you believe it's moving into a sort of criticism of staff and the way they are actually performing their duty?
It's an open-ended question, which can potentially get someone in trouble without all the facts being known. And
I'll uphold that because I agree. I don't think it's actually procedurally a good way to actually conduct an inquiry. If you want to have a report on that, Councillor, I would suggest that you ask for a report.
Sorry, with all respect, Mayor, and obviously you've made your decision, and I can't change that, otherwise I would, but I've asked really a simple question relating to council business.
No, Councillor, you've asked about a staff member, and that makes it personal. Yeah, no, well, even if it's on council business, it's still a staff matter. And, Councillor, you're very aware of what our duties are. You had a point of order you wish to raise?
Just in relation to Councillor Haggerty stating that it was a personal matter, it's not a personal matter. This is a staff, I'm asking about staff, on-staff business that the CEO is aware of, and I've said to the CEO she can answer any way she likes if she chooses to do so.
I heard you. I'm actually upholding Councillor Haggerty's point because it is a staff matter. I think that if you're going to ask about the behaviour of individual staff or groups of staff or any types of staff, it should be done in a way that meets our procedures. I don't think doing it in open council is appropriate. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Chitty?
All good.
Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor, I have just that one question
Wait a
that I
minute.
couldn't
Councillor
find.
Hadid will have a turn. Councillor Rhodes.
Well, thanks, Madam Mayor. Through your question to the CEO, would you please tell us why the concrete recyclers in the marina are not included in this report?
I'll ask Mr Smith. My understanding is because we're currently working with them on their precinct planning, and it would be premature to put it into this particular phase of the LEP. It may end up in LEP2. Is that correct, Mr Smith?
Absolutely. We've been in a number of discussions with the proponents for Site E, what's called the old concrete crushing site. They're proposing to lodge a planning proposal themselves. They've got a significant number of studies they need to do to support that planning proposal. So we're working collaboratively with them as they work through those studies. So we're expecting a planning proposal in the coming months on that.
So in other words, at a future date by the sounds of it. Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. Just one further question. I couldn't find it before the actual information, but what puzzles me is why councillors received an email by one developer who stated on the 2nd of the 8th, 2019, and I quote, We have worked with Council, engaging with the long-term strategic planning processes.
Can I just stop you, Councillor? I'm going to remind you again, and it's actually in the OLG guidelines. If you're asked a question, it has to be succinct. Please desist from reading from documents. If you have a question, short and sharp.
Okay, he continues that it was referring to the B4 proposal for that particular area, that was an ad hoc manner without proper consideration of the broader precinct.
Councillor,
My question
you're doing
is,
it again.
in what manner did
Be quiet, Councillor Rhodes. Councillor Haggerty, what is it?
Just procedurally, are we allowed to now read out
No, you're
everyone's
not.
opinion on every issue?
No, you're
Okay.
not.
Just
Councillor Rhodes.
My
I've given
question
you
then is,
thank you.
in what manner did Council work with this particular developer before consultation with the Warwick Farm constituents and before consultation with the councillors on the LSPS?
Well, I'm afraid the staff don't have enough information to answer that question with the authority it needs, because we're not.
I'm
going
happy to
name-
provide that information to the council for.
I would prefer you didn't at this point for a whole lot of legal reasons. Now, has anybody else got any questions? Councillor Haggerty?
Yeah, look, I would just like to clarify just on the point of order I raised. Can I do that? Probably not.
No.
In speaking about the LEP, I think it's a wonderful document, and I'll leave it at that. How's that?
Thank you.
I
That
won't
was
go
short
there.
and
I won't
sweet.
go there.
Okay, that was a statement, so I suspect you're speaking for it. Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? For or against? I'm going to put it then. I'm going to put the motion as moved by Councillor Haggerty and seconded by the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Canib. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Those against need to put your hand up because this is a planning matter. So those against, please put your hand up. Okay, thank you. Did you get that, Susan? Thank you. Somebody like to get Councillor Ayard before we move on to the next item. The next item, just while we're getting Councillor Ayard, is number 3, and several of you have put your hands up for 3. Some are staying in the room, some are going. Ego 03, we've had some declared interest in that one. Councillor Sheldon, Councillor Caliander, Councillor Haggerty, and I can't read my own writing.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, Councillor Rhodes, who used to be a member but isn't a member, but she's back. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just wait till they leave the room.
All right, I have a motion that.
Hold on, no, not yet. They've got to be not seen. And I can still see them. There you go. Right, now we're on page 114. Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a motion that I would like to propose, which
Yes,
hopefully
what
they'll
is
be
your
able to
motion?
put up. And I'll read it out for people as it's going up. Adopt the LEP, a land surrounding the Liverpool Museum and Collingwood House, as a destination precinct for the extended development of destination attractions. Prepare a report for the October meeting on the cost of a new iconic community building with a Liverpool history theme to be erected parallel to the Hume Highway in the destination precinct for a new community hall and in view of providing a new and permanent home to the City of Liverpool and District Historical Society. 3, identify possible grants and or funding that might assist Liverpool to build the new community facility. 4, allocate temporary space in the Liverpool Library to accommodate the needs of the display requirements of the City of Liverpool and District Historical Society at no cost to the Society in return for their services of maintaining, archiving and cataloguing of the Liverpool's historic exhibits and organising of exhibits to be placed on display within the library and at other opportunities throughout the LGA. And 5, maintain the storing of the exhibits in their current location at the bunker until a permanent home is established in the new destination precinct.
The CEO has some concerns about the motion. I just wish you
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in relation to number one, my concern about that is that that land has particular significance to the Land Council, and I just would need to get some advice from them about how they would respond to that before I could move forward in that. It's designated, and I believe it's even designated in the LEP and by the state government. So it does restrict and constrain what we're able to do there. I'm happy to bring a report back about it, but I don't think I can necessarily do what you've asked me to do there. I would be unable to prepare a report by October for such a complicated request. Again, more than happy to do it. It's just the timeline.
Councillor, wait a minute. May I make the suggestion that you ask Council to prepare the report as you've got on number 2, including what's possible in that precinct, and that it be brought back to Council. How much time would you like, CEO, or you need? Not like, but...
To scope out an iconic building is quite a complicated piece of work. Mr. Ottar, how long would you anticipate to have costs for an iconic community building?
Through the CEO, the whole process from developing a proper brief to going through a concept and detailed design would be good 12 to 18-month duration.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what Councillor Rhodes is wanting is something a little bit more immediate, but I...
No, I'm happy with that, Madam Mayor, because we have there an allocate temporary space in the Liverpool Library, which would serve realising that this cannot be done overnight, but we do have a long-term plan, and we will give the Liverpool Historical Society a permanent home. And in regards to the Aboriginal land, it is my knowledge, I might be wrong, but the land running parallel to that, the Hume Highway, is actually council land, and definitely the land where the museum sits is council land. The block behind it, running up to Collingwood House, is actually council land.
No.
So you could actually exclude the block that was known as the Aboriginal meeting grounds from the from a destination precinct if the Aboriginal consultancy part of it was not in favour of it. It could still be done.
Certainly we could look at all those options. I'm trying to picture the map in my head. I think it's a slither of B6, if I remember correctly, and then you go into the RE1. But when we're preparing the report, we'll come back with all those options. I just don't want to promise something that I'm unable to deliver because of the zoning prohibition.
Well, would it be possible then for us to rehash the motion so that we understand that Council has to take time to prepare?
Well, now we've changed it a bit so that it's a bit broader. It just gives Council a bit of time to consider it and basically come back with a proper report.
But the allocating of temporary space would be done.
That's still it's still there.
And that would be done immediately whilst that other thing is being done.
As immediately as anything moves in Council, but yes, I certainly would take action on it if it's resolved.
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Rhodes and seconded by Councillor Hall. Any discussion? Any opposition? I'll put it those in favour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? Declare it carried. Can we have the councillors come back in now, please?
Do we need to go to the bathroom there?
All right.
Is it a fake
Okay, the next item's on page 125. We're still missing Councillor Caliander, but I think we'll just, for the sake of time, keep moving. The page 125, she says. There it is.
Can I ask some questions, Mayor?
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
Thank you. Just in relation on page 126, the previous 126, I'm sure it is, yeah, where we're writing to the residents, point 2 on page 126. I take it now a direct mail letter will go out to the residents. Can I just ask what we will be sending them? Are we sending them a whole heap of numbers, or are we going to get straight to the point in relation to that letter?
Well, it's now we've changed it a bit so that it's a bit broader. It just gives Council a bit of time to consider it and basically come back with a proper report. But the allocating of temporary space would be done. That's still in the it's still there. And that would be done immediately whilst that other thing is being done.
Well, we do attempt to provide plain English correspondence to the community, so I will make sure that it's as clear as it possibly can be. As you can see from the report itself, it is fairly complicated, Councillor, but we'll bring it down to as simple and clear as we possibly can.
In plain English?
Yeah, in plain English. Yeah. Will it make reference that maybe we underestimated the number initially that was thrown out there, under 200 units in that town centre?
Councillor, firstly, that's not what the resolution actually asked me to do. But secondly, can I remind you that the number that we took was the number from the proponent's own information, which was the only firm figure we've had at any given time. These are only,
Sorry,
again...
Just on that point, just so that we're clear here, in relation to that same point was raised, then the officers corrected it, saying it was a council report, I believe.
It was an independent social impact assessment.
Done by council, not by the actual proponent. So
You're correct, Councillor. I want to stress that these figures, again, are figures that are the best assumptions that we are able to make, because we do not have a planning proposal in front of us to assess and to give firm figures. And I think that's an important message for the community to understand, is that at this point in time, these are really what you would describe as best guess figures.
Madam Mayor,
so from
Councillor Chitty, do you wish to finish?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mayor. So from the best guess figures, when we talk minimums and maximums, what are the best guess figures that council has come up with on this report? I know it's in there, but can I ask that I just be directed to it, just in case I'm reading the wrong page?
Point of order.
Yes, Councillor, what is your point of order?
Is council staff in the business of making guesses, best guesses about planning matters?
We were directed to do so, Councillor.
Supported by you, Councillor.
There you go. You've got your answer. So I'm not upholding the point of order. You're welcome. See, you win some, you lose some. Okay. Councillor has asked a question.
I would like to move
Hold on, Councillor Rhodes. The question's been asked about the best guess estimate.
So they're in the executive summary, Councillor, on page 124.
Yeah, just in case I'm reading it wrong, can I just have them clarified, please? I don't want the wrong information to go out.
So you would like me to verbally read them to you? Okay. In summary, the estimated dwellings, and note my stress on the word estimated, under the three scenarios from resolution point 3 as followed. Assumed outcomes of the development of the site under the current zoning are between 360 and 647, depending on the amount of non-residential development. Assumed outcomes for the development of the site referencing the document with a preferred amount non-residential floor space provided by the proponent to residents at their meeting on Sunday the 28th of July are between 600 and 675. Assumed outcomes for the development of the site referencing the draft DCP, which takes into account zone boundary changes and road realignments, are between 494 and 738 dwellings, depending on the amount of non-residential development.
Thank you, CEO. I do have some more questions, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yes, certainly.
Has council been in discussions with the proponent on a revised planning proposal?
Yes, we have, Councillor.
Do we expect one to come in soon?
Mr Smith, what's your anticipated submission date?
Through the CEO, the proponents advised within the coming weeks, so they haven't been specific, but the coming weeks.
Okay, just a few more, sorry, Mayor, because
no, that's fine.
It is an important issue. In relation to community consultation, has council adopted anything or got anything on draft where we've stated we want to see proposals pretty much go straight out to the community?
Yeah. Mr Moore, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, through the CEO, in the, I'm just thinking of the correct title, community participation plan, thank you. The community participation plan contemplates exactly that. If you recall, we briefed councillors on that. This is a new requirement also of the planning system, that we think it provides for better community engagement to exhibit planning proposals when they're received, rather than waiting for their detailed assessment and consideration by council and then a gateway determination. So yes, we have a community participation plan in draft at the moment that contemplates that approach.
Right. In relation to the current site, the road network is pretty much all over the place. Have you seen proposals where, and I think we can see one here in the book, the proposals in the book, are they better aligned streets for a better outcome in that community?
Mr Smith, can you speak to that?
Certainly. So in the book, there's a draft DCP amendment which differs from the one that was on exhibition in 2018 that the proponents are looking at lodging with Council in the coming weeks as part of their planning proposal. That will be then subject to Council's assessment to ensure that connectivity and permeability in the road network and traffic impacts are appropriately considered.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
Can I propose a motion then, Madam Mayor?
Yes, you can move a motion. Nobody has moved a
Okay,
motion.
I think that it can come up onto the screen, but I'll read it out. That Council receives and notes the report. Notes that Council is encouraged that the proponent seeks to lodge a revised planning proposal that offers to address all the previous concerns raised by constituents. 3, supports in principle the development of a town centre and delegates the CEO upon submission of a revised proposal by the applicant to allocate appropriate council resources to progress a preliminary assessment and place on exhibition the revised planning proposal in order to deliver a town centre for the people of Middleton Grange in the most timely manner possible. 4, make necessary the rezone of boundaries to enable road realignment to match the existing road designs external to the possible town centre site. And 5, Council provides in principle support for the advancing of the roads of the civil infrastructure on the site as soon as possible and delegates the CEO to assist and with appropriate council administrative processes to facilitate the progression of those works in general alignment of the approved subdivision pattern issued in 2015.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hall. Thank you.
Can we read that again?
Yeah, can you scroll up to item 2?
Do you wish to speak for your motion, Councillor Rhodes?
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah,
Yes, hold
gotcha.
on. Councillor Shilton wishes to ask a question.
Just bearing in mind I'm not necessarily against the sentiment here, but bearing in mind the application is yet to be lodged, can we actually say that we're finding it encouraging? And is it wise to do that?
That's a good point. I'll ask for some advice because it hasn't gone through the process.
There's a few other paragraphs there. I'm not necessarily against the sentiment, but we're just saying word. Yeah.
It's a very good point, Councillor Shilton. Yeah, you're totally correct, Councillor Shilton. The view from the staff is that it is preemptive and it could actually show bias on the actual development. So we probably need to be a bit more careful with the
Okay,
wording.
Madam Mayor, it was meant and intended that this has been a long overdue process and we are encouraged by the fact that something may be happening.
Yes, but we've got to be careful, Councillor, because the process of planning is a very...
Okay, can we take out the word notes that Council is encouraged and just notes that the
Take the whole
proponent
thing
seeks
out.
to lodge a revised planning proposal?
Yep.
Notes that the proponent seeks to lodge a revised planning proposal.
Point 3 seems to be...
My reading of point 3 is that you could say you support in principle the development of a town centre because that is consistent with the zoning that's currently in the LEP. I would then make that make the next lot words delegates the CEO a 4th point, just so you've separated out the 2 items in the public mind.
Fine, happy with that?
Okay, so how would you see the wording?
Can I suggest that one actually reads, should the proponent submit a revised proposal, delegate, because we're not sure they are or aren't.
Happy with that?
So should the proponent submit a revised proposal, delegate the CEO to allocate appropriate council resources to the rest of it?
Happy with those amendments?
Can I, and without reading the rest of that's there, can I make 2 points that I'd like to see in there?
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
Firstly, that, and we can word it whatever way you like, that once we receive the proposal, it goes on to community consultation so that we're actually assessing it while it's on community consultation, in line with our draft strategy that we just spoke about. But I just need to ensure, I'm not sure if you've got the words there, need to ensure that none of the community consultation overlaps into December or January. So it's a clear November.
Yeah, it's not the holiday season.
For example. I'm not sure if you want it in there for that bit.
So, Councillor, just for my clarification, what you're proposing to do is when we receive the application while we're undertaking assessment, we're also simultaneously undertaking community consultation. Okay, so if we receive the assessment mid-November, then I think we're looking at February before we're able to go out and do that, just to make sure we don't hit the silly season.
Okay, but if you receive, sorry, I'm not sure when it's coming in, staff are probably in a better position to, they've had the discussions, but we're currently in September, so if we receive, let's say, a proposal in October, I'd expect that it'd be on exhibition during the month of November.
That's fine, yeah.
But if we get it on the 10th of November, it's not going out till February.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was clear about what your expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Moore's just saying you want to make sure that whatever's submitted is a complete package as well. Okay. All right, I think everybody understands the sediment. Yes, Councillor Haggerty, you've got your light on.
Can we scroll back up, please? It's 4 redundant. Like, it basically says council will do its job. Yeah, don't. 5 is redundant, or I have an issue with 5 because if we're preempting what's going to be in the proposal, and also if what's in the proposal is different to what's in 5, what do we do? So I think take out 5 and let's see what's in the proposal.
Well,
No. No, I don't agree with that.
hold on a minute. The CEO wishes to make a comment.
I'm concerned about item number 5 because, again, it preempts the planning assessment. The rezoning is part of the planning proposal and it's captured by 4 because the planning proposal will be assessed. But to try and do it earlier, while the planning proposal has not in fact even been submitted or assessed, is potentially problematic. Well, it is problematic. It's not potentially. It is problematic.
Can I suggest we support the road layout without any without any land rezonings, and then the actual proposal they submit will then have to justify why that should be changed. At the end of the day, we want to see proper roads in that.
Yeah.
So, in principle, yes, we support the actual roads going that way. It's up to them then to demonstrate through their planning proposal how that'll work.
Yeah, so that would read supports the revised road layout.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just to clarify something.
Yes, Councillor Caliendo.
Would that be captured in 6? So the idea of, in principle, supporting the road realignment but not the land rezoning?
I didn't hear the last bit. I'm sorry, Councillor.
So what was just discussed in terms of, in principle, supporting the road realignment but not the land rezoning, would that be captured in point 6?
We're tying ourselves in not over a hypothetical again.
Yeah.
Let's wait for the planning proposal to be submitted and then we can decide whether we support it or not. Let's not tie ourselves in knots over something that doesn't yet exist.
Well, Councillor, can I welcome an amendment or a foreshadowed motion?
Yes, I will foreshadow a motion. 1 and same as 1 and 7.
1 and...
I'll take 1 and 7.
Okay. Well, that broadly supports it and we make sure there's community consultation.
I'll second that foreshadowed motion.
Yeah. Which is what I think everybody wants to see this sorted in one way or another.
So undertake a community consultation once a planning proposal is submitted in conjunction with the assessment, blah, 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 blah.
And that way there's no preemptive views on the actual development and there's no,
Let us make alterations to the above promotion then so that we're not preempting the situation, but if we can bring it down a little bit so that I can have another look at it.
Just bring the motion down, please. That's it. The CEO is really concerned about point 5. She feels...
That's wrong.
Yeah, but the mover may not want 0.5 removed, so it's up to the mover to have it.
Support the road.
The CEO feels
Support the
it's...
revised road layout if submitted.
Can we suggest that we prefer to see a different road layout? How do you word that from the current road layout?
Hold on, the CEO wishes to make a comment.
You got to put in.
So you could say review the... What you're trying to do is make the grid right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So review the support.
So support the principle of the grid road layout in Middleton Grange. That'll do what you want to do without potentially being an unlawful
That will
motion.
do it. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
So replace 5, I think. With
with
that.
those two, yeah. So get rid of the first 3 lines and supporting principle becomes number 5.
Yep. Happy with that.
Thank you.
Leaving
All
it
right.
as.
So 1, 3, 4, 7.
1.
No, 5, 6.
No, councillor has a foreshadowed motion.
1, 3, 4, 5, 7.
Okay, we'll just hold that thought. We've got to deal with this first motion. Any speakers against this motion?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, councillor Haggerty.
As I already bellowed, we're tying ourselves in knot here over something that does not yet exist, a planning proposal that has not yet been submitted. Once the planning proposal has been submitted, we can hammer it out on the floor of council. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to play with all the wording, happy to do all that, but it currently doesn't exist, and it's 7:43 in the PM, and I'm sure people in the audience would want to go home. 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, whatever one I said, 4, 5, 7. I think it's something that we can agree on. We note the report. We support the town centre. We support the road layout. We make sure that once a planning proposal is submitted, we put appropriate staff on it to get it moving, and we undertake community consultation. Let's not worry about what is or isn't in something that doesn't exist.
Can I ask a
that's
question,
speaking against?
Mayor?
Yes, councillor.
Through to the staff, can you just explain point 6 to us and what that means if it was adopted?
That's actually some of the roads and civil infrastructure is subject to a DA, I understand at the moment, not the planning proposal. So what it's really saying is get a kick on to assess the DA and then make that happen. I'm correct there, aren't I, Mr. Moore? Yes. Yep. Again, now I'm thinking that through, it could potentially be unlawful. You could be preempting a planning decision on a DA.
Mr. Moore doesn't like it.
You're all right for it? No, you're not all right for it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so given that we don't have any it needs a DA and we don't have any planning powers in relation to that, can we then maybe suggest that in point 4 we've got, should the proponent submit that stuff, get rid of principal support, that you pretty much get onto it the same way as we've mentioned in point 4?
Yeah, there is a DA under assessment currently at the moment.
For that?
Yep, for the road infrastructure.
All right, so we're not assessing it. How's that going and what are the issues with it then? So we're talking about something that exists then?
The DA for this is separate to the planning proposal and it currently exists. That's correct, isn't it, Mr. Moore?
Can we, and sorry, this one is on the spot because I didn't know it existed. Do you have any updates on what the issue is there?
Yeah, through the CEO. The issue is that, bizarrely, you've got to change the zoning to make the grid road layout work because the grid would push through land that is zoned for, I think it's recreation space. So there's a bit of a catch-22 going on there. We've tried to work with that as best we can, but it's a fundamental issue. So we've, I think, put the development application just on hold while we see how all of these other issues play out.
Right, so a road's not permitted in recreational zones?
Well, I might have the wrong zoning there, Councillor, but Mr. Smith's looking like he can answer that question.
I mean, it's not, the zone is RE1, but on top of that, there's land reserved for acquisition for a community facility. And so the wording is that you can't then put a road through where a community facility building's going to go. So if you start shifting the zoning, it's not going to be a problem. But with 6, it is a problem because we've got issues with the DA in relation to permissibility.
So Mr. Moore saying 6 is something we need to delete if we're going to pursue this particular motion, Councillor Rhodes. But it's up to you. The advice I'm getting is that it's illegal, so we'll have to go full stop without your permission. Okay. It's all right, that's fun sitting up here. Okay, so Councillor Rhodes, did you want to speak in reply?
Look, Madam Mayor, the point is that this has been on the books for so long. I think that the people of Middleton Grange deserve to be able to see what is on offer in this proposal. They do deserve to have a town centre provided as soon as possible. And I believe that the motion as put is in support of council fulfilling its obligation to the constituents of Middleton Grange to move this and to progress this new proposal as efficiently and as quickly as possible. And that's what the motion is trying to do.
Thank you. We've had the right of reply. No other debate is entered into. I'm going to put
Can
the
questions be
motion.
asked though? No debate.
No, I asked for people to speak against it.
But it's based on the new information just raised by the director.
The director has given us the information. I call for the right of reply. I am going to put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hands.
What are you voting in?
Yours, councillor. Those in favour, councillor. Thank you. Those against, declare it carried unanimously. Moving on.
Can I be painful and ask a question though, just to satisfy myself?
Yes,
with something?
certainly.
In relation to that response, and I take it on board that there's a community centre where they're proposing a road. Can't council enter into an arrangement where they tell us where the community centre could sit in a B2 zone, for example, and then we do a land swap like we do pretty much any day of the week. So I'm just trying to get my head around why we're stopping this.
Change the zoning.
If you can't.
We can land swap.
I think at this point it's sort of a bit of a work in progress, councillor, so it's not off the... I'm going to have a 10-minute recess. We have a quorum in the room. Councillor Chitty, I understand you want to recommit a motion?
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, can I recommit
EGRO 01.
EGRO 01, and then I'll move a motion if it
Yeah,
gets recommitted.
yes, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, so can we pull up
Chair.
the current motion that was passed by council?
Yep.
Please. Sorry, EGRO 01.
We're moving
Page 92.
Yeah, just in point 3, add the name Councillor Kanib, please.
Yep. Okay. No, he's not in the room.
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Councillor Kanib. Deputy Mayor
Okay.
Kanib.
He just nodded his head as he comes through the door, so I'm taking that as so that's just adding an extra person. I'll put it, those in favour, those against, carried. Thank you, councillor. So that's been changed and fixed up. Okay, the next item is on page 139.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Shelton. Seconded?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any opposition? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on page 149.
Move that way, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Chitty. Seconded? Councillor Kanib. Any opposition? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on 159.
Can I move, 159?
Yes, 159.
No, sorry, I don't move anything.
Okay,
What happened to
moving.
COMO2?
It's commo 3 on page 159.
We just did 02.
We did. It's done. Moved by councillor Chitty and seconded by councillor Kanib. Number 3, can we have a mover, please? Don't all rush me.
Oh, well, I'll motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Rhodes. Seconded.
That council defer the funding at this.
Wrong one.
What are we up to?
3 on page 159.
No.
Okay, so moving, councillor Haggerty's moving. Seconded. Seconder.
I'll second it.
Thank you, councillor Rhodes. Any opposition? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on page 160.
Move a motion, Mayor.
Yes, councillor.
That council confirms the May 29 resolution.
Seconded.
For what it's worth, I'll put up a foreshadow motion.
All right. What's confirmed the resolution? Yep. Okay. Do you wish to speak to the motion, councillor Chitty?
Just briefly, Mayor, I know we received the request, and unfortunately they did miss out on the championships.
Yes, they did.
They were going to hold. But given that we've got no plans really as a council, from what I understand and from the response to the briefing sessions, to do anything from a council point of view in that area, and given that this group pretty much is low maintenance and haven't really requested much, what's wrong with supporting them to upgrade the track and also get it ready? We always talk about having things ready just in case an opportunity comes along.
Yep.
We've committed it. Let them get it ready and let's move on.
Yep.
I'll speak against the motion.
Yes, go ahead, councillor.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think that there is no urgency at this stage to forward that money to this particular group. And I also think that council should be more forward-thinking and they should be thinking about a Georges River precinct plan for that side of the Georges River. And I would like to see that considered before we go ahead and fund further for the radio control racing track in that position.
Thank you, councillor. Just for the information of councillors, the maintenance is needed anyway because the track is disintegrating in parts. Okay, councillor Haggerty.
I would like to speak for councillor Hachidi's motion. I've been in communication with the racing car track people, if that's what you call them, and you know what they gave. They were going to host some world championships from memory.
Yep.
They lost it to Brisbane. Brisbane recently upgraded their track, so we're in a bit of a circular logic thing here.
Yep.
Another thing to note is that there are sort of different size cars. So you got your states, you got your nationals, and you got your World Cups, and then you have different sizes. So you have I don't know, 1/10 size, 1/20 size. So there is plenty of opportunity for the club to win other championships, whether they're national or world or Asia Pacific or whatever, in the coming years. And I think they have bids out for 2 or 3 of those now. So moving, let's get it done. It'll pay for itself. I'm no doubt sure that will be the case, as it has been with the netball courts, as it has been with the hockey fields, and as it has been with a number of world-class sports such as miniature car racing.
Thank you, councillor. And another speaker against?
Do I put up my foreshadow motion now?
No, you don't. You wait until this one's settled, and you spoke against it, which gave everybody the flavour of your foreshadowed motion, which is fine. Any other speakers? Councillor Hatchity, do you want the right to reply? Okay.
Can I have a question?
What is your question, councillor?
The question would be, would it not be more sensible to place this particular type of destination attraction with another similar functioning type of destination? And there is one called the Luddenham Engineers Club, which is in Luddenham, but I just think that these sorts of attractions work better when they're in clusters.
Thank you. The CEO will answer your question.
I think that's really a matter for council to determine how they want to deal with their sporting facility. So I think I just have to take that as a comment, councillor.
Okay, that's your question. No right of reply has been asked. I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item is tender on page 179.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Carnib. Any opposition?
No, but I have a question.
Yes.
So have we gone out for tender on the whole of, the whole best of breed whole of end-to-end system?
Mr White, please prefer to answer.
So through the CEO, there are 3 primary providers who offer what we would call more or less an end-to-end solution for local government. Those solutions are varying in quality and in particular in different areas have strengths and weaknesses, as you would imagine. A tender process would normally involve us going and advertising to the market to try and get bids, but we know who the 3 providers are. They're well established in the market, and as a consequence, rather than tender, we're currently undertaking a project to do a broad market test of all 3 providers across basically the entire council. So a usual tender process will involve an evaluation committee of 3 or 4 people. What we're trying to do is involve a lot more than that, obviously, because you're talking about multiple systems, potentially up to 10 or 12, everything from libraries to booking systems, but then the core systems like finance and CRM and everything else. And there's a lot of stakeholders across the entire business who will have an interest in being a part of that decision. So we're conducting a much more consultative, broad-ranging process to assess quality. Then we'll tighten it down for an assessment of price, and we're going to come back to the council with a detailed assessment. We're looking at probably about 6 to 8 months on that. When we bring it back, we'll be asking you to confirm the decision and basically give us a tender exemption based on the fact that there really are only 3 competitive offerings in the market.
I have a question.
Hold on, Councillor Haggerty.
Besides that unorthodox method, everything else is following, same, there's a PCG, it's going to go through ARIC, all that stuff?
Yes, through the CEO, that's correct. So yes, there's a probity plan on board. Local government procurement is assisting us with this. So we'll have external probity, we'll have local government procurement being a part of that process and guiding us through it. And they'll be convening all the panels and making sure that everything's above board.
And just in terms of project management, are we using in-house project managers or are we hiring external?
So through the CEO, look, our intention is to basically utilise the successful provider in that regard. So ultimately, if we are going to go with provider A, that will involve almost inevitably, because we have currently systems with all three providers across the council, provider A will ultimately find themselves merging some old legacy systems of theirs into a new system of theirs, usually probably a software as a service platform, and then migrating competitive services into that same platform. They are the people with the most experience in particular data migration, which is the primary challenge, and so we'll be working with them. From a council perspective though, my ICT manager, who's been involved in these projects before, will lead from council's perspective, but primarily we'll be leaning on the providers to undertake that with probably some on-site data conversion and data cleansing expertise that we'll have to bring in.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Is Council aware that West Rock is also investigating software packages for, yes, you are aware?
Yes, we are, Councillor. In fact, we've seen the submission that they're making to the Local Government New South Wales Conference, and as we're doing that work, we'll take into consideration anything that comes out of that proposal.
Thank you.
Okay, any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it unanimous for the typist. Next item is your committee, investment report on page 1.
Move that
I'll
way.
move that way.
Question, thank you, Madam.
Hold on. That was Councillor Haggerty and seconded was
Was me. Councillor
Leander. Thank you. Yes. Who's have a question? Councillor Sheldon, was it?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, about 2/3 of the way down page 183, it's identified that for the month of August, the return on investment was substantially lower than budgeted for. I'm wondering whether the changed economic circumstances, whether that's likely to continue to be the case in months in the future. I seem to remember that previously we've always done a little bit better than budgeted for, so this sort of sticks out, and whether that's going to be the shape of things to come. Thank you.
I'll ask Mr White to answer.
So through the CEO, it's a function of two things, Councillor. The first being that we were, based upon experience with our previously, I'd say, rather conservative budgeting of investment numbers, we were a little more aggressive with our investment forecast this year, remembering that these numbers were set back in February. And obviously since then, as Council would be aware, we've had 2 rate adjustments, which has impacted our yield. So it's those 2 factors, more aggressive budgeting and obviously a weaker market, a softer market in the investment side.
So those are the factors, but is it likely to continue?
Through the CEO, I'd expect yes, unfortunately. Another thing that did save us in past years and created increased investment income was the Civic Place project, which was delayed. As Council will be aware, that project is now proceeding. We expect to begin drawing down on those monies fairly soon, so we won't see that benefit either this year. So yes, I would suggest that the short answer is yes, it's likely to continue and potentially worsen over the year.
Thank you.
Yes, councillors. Any other questions?
Can I just ask, but I did ask in the budget session, we'll be getting a report back in relation to Civic Place returns if certain things don't happen?
Yes, you requested that information. You can put it in resolution if you
that's
want
fine.
to, but we'll do it.
Just to make sure that it is noted. Yes, we'll be getting a response to that. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. All right, given there's no opposition, I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item is the committee reports.
I have a
Madam Mayor,
correction, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
I have a correction to the Tourism and CBD Committee. On page 198, Mr Wang advises that the data was very general and there were uncertainties around accuracies and analytical conclusions. Therefore, this should be taken into consideration before utilising this information for Council's efforts. I've had confirmation Mr Wang was referring to the information collected through STR, not the information collected directly from the hotels in the Liverpool LGA. And this is why it would be more helpful for Liverpool to have the visitation figures collected directly from the hotels.
Well, we'll have to. I'm happy if you want to change the minutes that Mr Wang advised that STR data is very general, but other than that, I think at this point. Okay.
So what are we correcting?
His comment
that it was not in reference to the STR. It was in reference to the STR, not in reference to the information collected from hotels.
That's right, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have another one.
Yes, what's the other one?
The other one is the Civic Advisory Committee meeting. There's missing information not included in those minutes, which was discussed and recommended. I think George will recall. The council changed the charter for the order of the Liverpool Awards to include guidelines for expected quality and length of voluntary service to have served in order to be nominated for the award. The voluntary service must be through a long-established not-for-profit organisation. And I'm sorry, I don't know the names of the awards. The highest award was 20 years service. The next one was 10 years service. And the bottom one was 5 years service. This change was to preserve the quality of the awards, and it was also recommended that there should not be an award given to just anyone who applies, and that the award should be given only to these people who meet the service requirements. I think if we went back to the recording of the meeting, you would find that that was the case.
I think we'll defer that matter and we'll actually ask for it to be confirmed. It's easy to put it in retrospectively. My suggestion would be to defer that inclusion until it's actually been investigated, and if it shows that it's missing, it just be put.
We can bring it up at the next meeting.
That too.
Madam Mayor, can I move that all of the committee reports be moved as a whole?
With the exception of the Intermodal Committee, because we have to determine whether to humanely put it down.
Okay, so you mover and a seconder for that. Councillor, thank you, Councillor Did. I'll put it, those in favour, those against, carried. Now we're dealing with page 234.
I have some questions.
Yes.
But they're for the chair of this committee.
Through the chair
through
of
the mayor to the chair.
Yes, the chair of the chair.
I would just like to ask the chair of that committee. We're on the intermodal.
Some notice.
Is it possible? I guess, how is the committee working? Is it fulfilling its stated objectives? If so, is it possible to change those objectives? Just his thoughts on how it's working as a committee and whether we should disband it or not.
Can I take that on notice, Mayor?
Certainly,
Thanks.
Councillor. No problems at all. Okay, with that...
I've got a question too.
Yes, Councillor Shelton, what is your question?
Yeah, my question through you to the appropriate staff member in relation to page 235, we've got request the Independent Planning Commission, further down, the peer review was not undertaken as there was insufficient time to complete it for the hearing. If council wishes to proceed per the peer review, the 30,000 already approved by council can be utilised. As at the moment, what use could be made of that peer review if it is to proceed? Previously, the motion was it proceeds in certain circumstances. Now we're talking about spending the money in any event. So my question is, as of now, what possible use would we be making of that peer review?
Let the CEO answer that.
Councillor, I think as of today there would be no practicable use. However, there may be further modifications and applications submitted that information could be relevant to, but that's for the future. Mr Smith, is there anything other to add there?
How far off in the future is that likely to be, and would a peer review today still be relevant at some unknown point in the future?
I think I might have to take that on notice. Mr. Wafe's no longer here. I'm not sure how relevant road data is and when it essentially becomes null and void.
Yeah. Mayor, can I, just in relation to, and it deserves a response to Councillor Haggerty's question, can I suggest that we go into, while we're in closed session, we actually discuss that? Because he's asked me a question which he's probably going to talk about.
No worries. We can move that into closed session. All right. Moving that in closed session by Councillor Chitty, seconded by Councillor...
I'll second it.
Under section 10.2.
Thanks, Mayor.
All right. Questions with notice on page 244.
All right, who's first?
You are.
You are, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the response. And I'll be careful here.
You can put it into closed session if you want.
No, I don't want to keep going into closed, but I thank them for all these policies that were provided. Obviously, some of them, or one of them, needs an update, which I think we spoke about that previously. But I think I asked a question about the whole organisation, and I got a policy for the council's customer service, which I believe relates to the customer service centre. Am I correct, or am I incorrect? So it relates to that.
Councillor, can I just clarify that policy is relevant for all staff?
All staff.
Yep.
Now, in all honesty, the response I thought I'd get was, Councillor, we may have an issue. We're working on it. We've identified a few things, and we're going to make some changes. Instead, yes, we are going to make improvements. Instead, I'm just throwing with policies in there. My understanding is there could be an issue, and I've got to be careful with what I do say, that council is looking into the issue. Who monitors the return of phone calls? Who monitors the return of emails? Who ensures that they get done? All councillors received an email yesterday, which was confidential, but there was a recommendation from the internal in relation to that. Has that been adopted?
I'm not aware of that email at this point in time. I'd have to have a look at that, Councillor. I believe the answer you've got responds to the questions you've asked. If you're asking me, and I'm happy to say this full and frankly, do we have a problem with some sections of council not being as fast as I feel they should, or meeting this policy? Yes, absolutely we do. And it is an area of continuous improvement. I'm more than happy to put that on the public record. Is it possible to monitor every phone call and email that goes in and out of the organisation? Absolutely not. That's an impossible task. But managers and coordinators need to take responsibility for these areas, and that then becomes part of their performance management process if they're not doing it. This is part of updating the policy. It's part of developing the service level agreements. Is it perfect at the moment? Absolutely not. I would be lying to you if I pretended that. Is it something that I'm acutely aware of and I address at pretty much every executive meeting? Yes, it is.
And I suppose, thank you for that, which is a lot. I'm not saying anything about this response, but that email was sent through last night at 6:14, and yes, you were included in that, in the email. I'm just looking at who it was sent to, and I'm just trying to find the point where a recommendation was made in relation to some business improvements, and I was just wondering if that had been taken on board. I'm just trying to find exactly which paragraph it was.
One that is in relation to planning, Councillor?
This is at 6:14 p.m. from internal.
I just can't get the time up on my thing. Yes, we have taken that on. Well, I only got this at 6:14 last night, but I have discussed those issues with the Internal Ombudsman, and yes, of course, if recommendations are made, unless they're unreasonable, we take them on board and deliver them.
Thank you so much. Next item is on page 266. It's a question with notice, not a motion. That's Councillor Ayad. Great, thank you so much for that. Next item is 271 in the name of Councillor Hall, and I note that the answer will be given to you in October. Next item is 272, and that's also October.
Mayor, can I move a 272? That's Councillor Haggerty.
Yeah, it's Councillor Haggerty.
Sorry, Councillor.
So hold your horses.
I'm holding them.
And the next one is yours,
Can I move
273.
a motion in relation to that? And I'm going to seek the assistance from Director Tina in relation to the wording. I've got some basic wording up there, but it probably needs to be played around, and I do apologise that it wasn't sent to you. I've just been running around. In short, Council's done a couple of studies in relation to rec and open sport. We've identified that indoor sports and basketball, there's a need in there, and we're lacking. Council staff, thank you to Tina and the staff that attended the meeting for an unsolicited approach. in relation to that. This is not asking for anything except just to put on the record that we've done the studies and we support, subject to everything that we need to go through to ensure that it's all above board and transparent, that we're happy to discuss further with these people the provisions of indoor facilities. Now, the reason why I'm asking for it to be on the books or on the agenda, there's a grant that's available. Yes, very appreciative of the letter, which is one part, but then also to get in principle support from the governing body just strengthens that application. And if any words need to change, happy to change anything, do anything, as long as we sort of just identify on the record that we have that study and we're happy to talk to these people.
Happy to second that. I was also in the meeting, so let's make it a bipartisan thing if possible.
Okay, thank you. The CEO wishes to make a comment.
Councillors, on my initial read, noting that our Acting General Counsel was in the room when the discussions, I'm comfortable with that. I just want to run on the proviso that I will get the GC to look over it once more after, and if there is an issue, I'll come back to you. But my reading of that is that that's perfectly suitable and there's nothing unlawful in it.
You want to add a number 7 that the GC looks at it and is authorised then through your...
Yeah, just because unsolicited proposals,
absolutely.
there's some pretty strict guidelines around them.
Okay, I think people are generally aware of it. I'm going to put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's in your name, Councillor Chitty.
Yeah, and I've got another one which is pretty much under section 10 something when it comes up that we go into closed session, and the section is
10.2.
10A2E, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law. Go into closed session and the meeting discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's 2 items you have.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next item is on on page 3 of your addendum document. Page 3. It's the draft contributions plan.
I'll move the recommendation as per the book, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor
Seconded.
Caliendo. And Councillor Haggerty. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Presentation by councillors.
I'll move. Oh,
we've got the mosquito man. He's done.
What about that? Sorry, do you want me to do the presentation?
Yes, please.
Oh, perfect. Earlier this month, I attended on the Mayor's behalf the presentation from the Miracle Babies Foundation to thank their supporters over the course of the year. And I just wanted to highlight to my fellow councillors a couple of the ways that our contribution to the organisation has been used. So in the last financial year, we contributed a total of $26,800 to allow the Miracle Babies Foundation to deliver a couple of different projects. For those who are not aware, the Miracle Babies Foundation supports the families, in particular the parents of babies that are born prematurely, because it can be an often very stressful time with not a lot of information about what to do and what's happening, particularly in terms of medical procedures. So about $12,000 in matched funding was provided to support the design, printing and distribution of a flyer or informational resource specifically targeted to assist fathers on their journey with a premature or sick baby in the hospital, particularly in the neonatal intensive care unit. And that flyer is to be translated into 9 different languages to ensure that this information and resources are available to as many people within our community as possible. And a further $15,000 in match funding was delivered to support the production and distribution of about 400 NICU graduate bags for the families of these often quite sick young children. And that has had a really significant impact on these families over the course of the year. So they wanted to, they asked me to thank the council for all of their efforts and the support provided to the foundation. And I've also got this kind of cool little thing to present to the council as well. Thank you.
Very nice little thing. Thank you for your presentation. Next item is notices of motion, outdoor dining policy in the name of Councillor Haggerty.
Thank you, Mayor.
275.
I'm switching back to the other book.
Yes, sorry. The big book.
There we go. Outdoor dining policy. Yes. So obviously I move as per the book. My colleague, Councillor Hachidi, has seconded it. Basically, this was a small business commissioner from the state government put this out recently. And essentially, the intention is you adopt this policy and then councils don't need to have their own. It's essentially cutting red tape. I'm a big fan of cutting red tape and making it easier for small businesses to get a go. We are, I guess we're trying to foster, especially around restaurant strips, cafes, that kind of thing. We're trying our best to get something like that going. The easier it is for them, the better. I've had my issues with the planning team and trying to get restaurants up and going in this area. So anything that makes it easier, I'm all for. So yeah, this is pretty straightforward. Now, I understand that there is a city centre public domain master plan imminent. So rather than throw this out now, let's incorporate it into that coming document so that we're looking at it in a more strategic fashion, and then everything sort of links in and everything that's going to be in that document moves in the right direction.
Thank you. Any speakers against the motion?
I'm a little bit confused because if you listen to the CEO's comments on that, it says there's at least 3 things that we should consider before adopting the policy. I'd like to be able to consider those more closely before adopting this policy.
Thank you.
Had a
I'm
week
going
and a
to
half
take
to
that as
consider
speaking
them.
against the motion, Councillor Rhodes. Thank you for that. Any other speakers for the motion?
I'll support Councillor Haggerty, given that it's a state government policy that Councillor Haggerty is supporting. I'm sure he's actually read through it and thinks it's worthwhile supporting, so I'd be happy to support it.
Okay. All right. Do you wish your right to reply, Councillor Haggerty?
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm going to put it, those in favour, those against, carried. Next item's Farrington Park in your name, Councillor Haggerty.
It's another policy. So I think we've spoken about this before. Basically, a few of us went to that launch of the Farrington Park. I think we can all call that a success. Whenever the community drives something, it means that it'll be looked after longer, it'll cost less, it'll get used, the idea here is that we do a lessons learned process. We speak to the residents, what worked, what didn't work, what could have been easier from council's perspective. We also speak to the men's shed. I've had a chat with them today. They're supportive of this idea. And basically, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a dozen or so of these parks right across the LGA where community neighbourhoods get together and go, let's fix up our park. We give them a bit of a hand. They fix up their park. It's their park. They own it. They built it. They look after it. Therefore, it ends up being a better park that's better used, saves ratepayers money, and we probably have to do less maintenance on it. So that's the idea. And I've given you plenty of time to do that.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Canib. Any opposition? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, carried. Next item's on page 283 is the recommendation. And it's moved by...
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Rhodes, I believe. Yeah, that's...
Yes, Madam Mayor, the changes to the Code of Meeting Practice. As you know, council meetings are held midweek at the busiest time for our constituents, and therefore they may not always be available to watch the live stream or attend council meetings. The live streaming the council meetings and then removing the video recording once the council meeting has finished means some people are less informed than others, for no other reason than that they simply cannot be available on the night of the council meeting. All constituents have the same right to ease of access to the information contained in the video recordings as those people who were able to attend or were able to watch the live stream on the night of the meeting. Council recently chose to upload a video recording onto the Council website because Council understood that by uploading the video onto the Council website, they were providing maximum opportunity for all people, all of the public, to have the same factual information as those people who were fortunate enough to either attend the meeting or watch via the live stream. For Council to make a decision about what information they upload onto the website and what information they do not upload onto the website for public access could be perceived as Council controlling what information it is willing to share with the public and what information it is not willing to share. It is also permitting Council to make decisions on what they feel is important rather than permitting the public to have access to the entire video recordings in order for them to decide for themselves what is important to them. It is in the best interest of Liverpool that the public is fully informed at the same time to the facts of each meeting that is included in the entire video recording of each Council meeting. This can only be attained by uploading the video recording of each meeting onto the Council website after the meeting has concluded for full public access in a similar way as the minutes are made publicly available. We need to upload the video recordings onto the Council website because not all people are available to watch the live streaming of the meeting. In Liverpool, we have over 80% of the constituents who have to leave the Liverpool LGA each day to work. At the time of our Council meeting are being live streamed on our Council website, many residents are not even home from work. When they do get home, they are busy providing family meals and preparing for work or school the next day. In Liverpool, we have a high percentage of constituents who work night shift, making them unavailable to watch the live stream of the Council meeting. We pride ourselves on being a health and education hub, and yet doctors, nurses, educators, students, nighttime shift workers and hospitality workers are all people who work nights and are being excluded if we do not upload the video recordings onto the website. This is the only way they can engage at a time when they are available. If we do not upload the video recordings after the Council meeting onto the Council websites, we are excluding all the above people from having the same right of access to Council information. This Council has nothing to hide from our constituents, and yet by limiting the access to the recording of the meetings, that is what some constituents may think. What is Liverpool Council hiding? The recordings of Council meetings are there to validate and substantiate the written minutes. The recordings cannot undermine the minutes of the meeting, as councillors were previously advised. In writing the minutes of Council meetings, the recordings of the meetings are often referenced to assure the accuracy of those minutes. This is not undermining, but is actually validating the written minutes. The Director of Institute for Public Policy and Governments at the University of Technology, Associate Professor Roberta Ryan, said research showed that people held their councils in higher regard when they had more contact and more exposure to what their councils did. It is difficult for the constituents to understand the range of things that councils do or the complexity of the decisions that they have to make. If you are not involved with councils, it is only by maximising the access to the video recordings of Council meetings that the constituents have the greater understanding and engagement. Other councils have embraced the opportunity to better engage with their community through making video recordings available on the website. Wollongong, Northern Beaches, Wollondilly, Inner West Council, with Parramatta and Campbelltown, I think, set to implement this year. The General Manager of Northern Beaches said webcasting encouraged the community to understand and be involved with local issues. Our neighbouring council, Wollondilly, said this is a great accomplishment for council as it is one step closer to bringing the Wollondilly community closer together. Wollondilly's council's General Manager said webcasting council meetings is an excellent way to enhance access to the democratic decision-making process. Local government has a broad range of responsibility and makes decisions that can affect the whole community. Uploading the video recordings onto Council website will provide Liverpool Council with the opportunity to extend its transparency and maximise the opportunity for the public access and participation in Council meetings. It will increase the value of our relationship between council and our community. It will allow everyone equal and inclusive access to the opportunity to observe the decision-making process regardless of the meeting time. We as councillors have a duty of care to the constituents of Liverpool who elected us to be their voice in the decision-making process. Many in our community believe that it seems that since the last election, the local community has lost its ability to be heard, and that decisions are being made despite their objections or without knowledge, and decisions are often made after
We've run out of time.
Advice from people who
Wind
do
up,
not live
Councillor.
in Liverpool.
Thank you. All right, we have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hall. Does anybody wish to speak against the motion?
I have some questions.
Yes, Councillor.
Has the legal advice in regards to this changed?
Mr White, do you want to speak to it?
Through the CEO, no.
Thank you. All right.
Just one more question, sorry.
Yep.
I can't find it now, but because there's lots here. There's something in here about outside experts in the background. I can't find it at the moment. Just through you, Chair, I just wanted to ask the movers of this motion, which outside experts were they referring to? Were they government bureaucrats, council staff, or councillors who don't live in the local government area, or all three?
You can take your pick, councillor. There are decisions being made on local decisions here at council that are not being influenced by councillors, and I think you're well aware of that. And it has been noticed by the constituents who have elected us to represent them. And they do not feel that that is the right way for local government to conduct its business for its constituents.
Just hold on a moment.
Two points, Mayor. Firstly, can I request Councillor Haggerty withdraw the outside local government area? Some of us are outside the local government area due to some circumstances, and I don't think that funds should be poked at that, given that some of us...
Can I just, I appreciate your concern, Councillor. I would ask that Councillor Haggerty do just retract that one.
Happy to retract, but I found it. It's the fourth last paragraph.
I also have a problem with the notion that Councillor Rhodes is putting forward that there's no really community consultation. I think that's probably the best way to sum it up without getting into the nitty-gritty. I don't believe that is the case, and I'm saying that as the Mayor and as the Chair, not as objecting to the motion.
Madam Mayor, can you point me to the paragraph that
it's on page 282, and it's, we can point to many things where council's engaging the community, councillor, and I think to make these particular statements as being truth is not really quite a good way to do it. I appreciate some
can you actually point me to the paragraph that you have a problem with?
Third one up and fourth one up, both have basically...
The third one up and the fourth one up?
Yep, from the bottom of the page, on page 30.
1, 2, 3. It is difficult for the constituents to understand the range of things that councils do. I'm not saying that council doesn't try to make them understand.
No. Many of our community believe that since the last election, the local community has lost its ability to be heard. Decisions are made despite their objections, without their knowledge, and decisions are often made after expert advice from people who do not live in the Liverpool area. Now, I think that, to be frank, is hovering on fibbing, I think will be the nicest way to put it. That is not the case, and that is not how this particular council operates, and it's not a paragraph I think that should be
I'm willing
included.
to take that paragraph out of,
Thank you.
but I wish to reiterate that by uploading the...
Yeah, you've spoken to your motion.
Thank you. As long as I've made that perfectly clear.
I know what you're trying to achieve. That's not the issue. Okay, have we got any speakers against the motion?
Couple of questions.
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
Councillor Haggerty referred to legal advice. Has the legal advice changed? Now, was there legal advice saying that we can't do this? My understanding was it was up to council to decide.
It's entirely up to council to do so. the advice was given on a risk basis, which was that we felt it would be that council staff feel it can be potentially risky to have things out there in the public domain. But at every point, we've made it clear, I believe, that it is for councillors to determine. It's not for me. I've got professional indemnity insurance.
Yeah, but there's no legal advice says that we can't do this.
No, absolutely not. It's entirely for council to determine.
But there has been, council has been given advice in the sense of opinion.
Yeah, okay. Just another question in relation to the CEO comments. If I read correctly, it says it needs to go out on exhibition. Should we choose to do this?
I would consider this a material change to the policy which would require further exhibition. I'm happy to be persuaded otherwise, but it's a significant change.
Just in relation to this, practice has been from this council that if it affected council laws and it wasn't affecting the community or something that we were pulling away from them, or we weren't reducing speaker time, this is just a matter of putting something on the website that council then bypassed the actual community consultation because it didn't affect the community, it affected us as councillors based on the advice.
My understanding is that, Mr Georgiakis, I'm just looking at you, when the Code of Meeting Practice, Model Code of Meeting Practice came in, there was a requirement to put that on public exhibition, is that correct?
Yep, there was.
Yeah, I believe that's right. And the internal ombudsman was consulted with the issue that Councillor Hitchett is referring to, and he advised that this would require public exhibition before we implement it. So we're just following that advice.
Thank you. Councillor Hall, you wish to speak as a seconder?
No, I just wanted to point out that at the last council meeting, we actually said that we would put on display for a continuous period to do with the Middleton Grange. Do you remember that?
Yeah, for a particular time frame.
Yes, and what's so different about leaving it on, putting these on the website until such time as our community consultation is finished, which may, if that's the way we think, that they may say no, which I doubt. But the point is, I would like to see that we put these things, these podcasts on the web ASAP, and then have at the same time, have the community consultation if that's what's needed.
Thank you. I'll take that as speaking for the motion.
I would like to foreshadow a motion.
Okay. Would you like to speak against the motion, councillor?
I would like to speak against the motion. The legal advice hasn't, or the legal opinion hasn't changed, but just put that to one side. I have an issue with point 4, and that's in relation to the CEO's comments. That I guess what we're saying there is that members of the public can attend some of the more confidential meetings. So, and the examples given there are strategic panel and budget review panel. We do discuss very sensitive information in those meetings. So I object to the public being able to attend those meetings. I'd also object to committee meetings being recorded for the same reason. In fact, if we're not going to, if there's legal opinion that council meetings put us at risk, then I would have very serious reservations about council committees being broadcast and put online. What we don't seem to realise here is that, we put ourselves up for defamation here, and I like my house and I like my soon-to-be-finished investment property, and I don't want to have to sell them in order to pay a very large defamation bill. We can still have open dialogue, we can still debate, we still do. I just, I'm not a lawyer, but I will take on board the opinion of more learned persons than myself. So, can we take 4 out, please? I guess is what I'm saying.
No, it stays in.
Okay, thank you. So we had 2 speakers for, we had a speaker against. Any other speakers against?
Madam Mayor, can I just clarify? Live stream the council meeting as we do now and upload the video recording onto the council website after the conclusion of each meeting is what this motion is saying. Okay? The change from 5.13 to include the entitlement of the council public to attend, put in the word the council meetings as in reference to these meetings, to include section 3.2 of the previous code of meeting, which actually reads, and I have a copy here for council to actually see the wording of it. It actually does read, contrary to the CEO's comments, meetings should be a part of council's commitment to open government and maximise the access and participation available to city's residents, and council meetings should comply, and the rest of 3.2.3. But the point is, Madam Mayor, that what we are saying is that the people who voted us in have a right to know what happens at council meetings. And by uploading the video recording onto the website, that's what we're permitting. And there is other legal advice that has been shown to council that says that council is outside the intention of the Act with our previous decision.
Thank you, Councillor. I have to say, as the Chair, I don't actually totally agree with your sentiments. Councillor Hadid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, look, we keep referring to legal advice or opinion advice, whatever. I believe that is irrelevant to what we are discussing now for simple reason. Because this advice, opinion or legal advice, it doesn't say we cannot do it. So it's no use to keep referring to it. This is one. Secondly, we never ever discuss any confidential in the public. If for some reason a councillor raised this issue confidentially, and the public should be his or her responsible for their action. It is not the whole council. So I'm not denying it may not happen. It may happen. But if anyone raised confidential issues, so he should be responsible, or she should be responsible. I don't see why we can upload it and put it on the net. Let everyone look at it. So what there is in it? So we can do it. Why we shouldn't do it? There is no reason to it. But that's my opinion anyway.
Mayor, can I suggest to the mover and seconder, if I may, that point 1, 2, 3, as they've identified, point 4 reads, amend where necessary the code of meeting practice to reflect the changes in 1, 2, 3, and 5, place it on public exhibition for whatever period it is that we need.
I have a question of the council staff, because in this document it says that the intention is the video be uploaded for the length of the time that the minutes are available. How long are I know the answer to this, so it's a Dorothy Dixer. How long do the minutes stay?
Forever.
Forever, that's what I thought. Thank you. Okay, having said that, we've had 3 speakers.
Happy for the time to be discussed.
Pardon?
Happy for the time of the duration to be discussed. I put in there in a similar fashion to the minutes, because that's what I believe should be happening. But other councils do it for at least a year.
Well, it's a matter for the mover and seconder, and it's a matter for the council.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Hull.
I remember a notice of motion that was put up that the minutes and the audio of all meetings had to span an election period.
The minutes.
It's the minutes.
Certain, I raised the motion a few years ago, and the idea was that if there was an audio of a previous council, that you could go back to that and check. So, in other words, it had to be a rolling time frame, and I believe it was 4 years. I don't believe
the minutes, Councillor, the minutes actually are up there longer than the audio.
Yeah.
The minutes are there, like you can go back to 2006 if you wish. I advise you not to, because it drives you insane. No. But the audio is on a time limit. I'm not too sure how long.
Mr Georgiakis, how long do we preserve the audio for?
He's just going to check.
Through the CEO, so the audio is in our TRIM records management system, so staff can access it. So we've got a record of it, just like any other record. And we've got it for, we do hold it for the duration that Councillor Hale's referring to.
4 years?
And even longer than that.
Okay, so that audio's
we haven't disposed of them, older ones.
Okay.
But I don't know exactly how long, but it's at least 4 years.
Yeah.
If it's in trim, we're never
Yeah.
going to dispose of it.
No, that's
Madam Mayor, could I suggest that we do the same for this?
Well, it's the mover and the seconder. You're the seconder. You need your mover to the file size.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make an alteration to the motion.
Yep. What is that?
It's leave 1, 2, 3 as it, leave 2 and 3 as it is, and number 1, live stream the council meeting and upload onto the video recording onto the council website after the conclusion of each meeting for a period of 12 months.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, that 12-month thing probably needs to go in point 2 where it says for the same duration of council minutes.
Yeah. Just take that out and just say for a period of 12 months.
And, if necessary, place the changes on public exhibition for comment in 5. If that is a necessity for council to do that.
Place on public exhibition.
You need a number 4.
Councillor, may I just suggest that you delegate back to me to approve it if there's no submissions received, or else we'll be doing this again in 2 months.
Absolutely. So that would be number 5.
Place on public exhibition and delegate to the CEO to implement the policy if there's no opposition to the policy.
Put in opposition to the okay.
And number 4 would read, make the relevant changes to the...
you have to do that anyway.
You have to do that? We don't need that?
No.
And can we put in there a number 6, which says all previous videos of council to be uploaded onto the website when it's all done?
Okay, I think people are clear on the matter, and we've had speakers for and against.
Madam Mayor, before
Yes.
you do that, could I suggest that we do the 4 years? Why can't we do currently we did the audio for 4 years rolling. In other words, it's halfway through one term, halfway through the other term. If you need to go back and check,
I'm not an IT engineer. I'll have to find a way to store it in the cloud.
Councillor, can I suggest we leave it as 12, given this council finishes in 12, and leave it up to others?
It's a good point. Okay, I'm going to put the motion. It's moved by Councillor Rhodes and seconded by Councillor Hull.
So, sorry, I just want to read it once again.
Okay, it's, excuse me, live stream the council meeting and upload the video recordings onto the council website after the conclusion of each meeting. Place all past and future video recordings of the meeting onto the council website and full public access for a period of 12 months. Excuse me. Ensure a link to the video recordings are prominently displayed on the homepage of the council website for easy access to the recording times. Change section. Oh, well, that will change. Have to change it anyway. So then there becomes a place on public exhibition and delegate if there's no opposition to the CEO to have this policy implemented. Excuse me. Okay.
Can we just clarify 5 that all previous videos, we're meaning the last 12 months, not all previous videos?
We've only been recording for 5 months.
Not long.
All previously recorded videos then.
Yeah, it's not been that long.
And Mayor, just one thing in relation to video streaming. Can we welcome our friends from Nepal that are watching live now? So we do have people all over the world viewing us. So maybe give that person a wave.
Okay then.
No, someone else.
All right then. I'm going to put the motion as moved by Councillor Rhodes and seconded by Councillor Hart. Those in favour, please raise their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against, declare it carried. Next item is on page 287. In the name of, it must be Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Kellyanne?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I've sent. There's an updated version of the motion that should be coming up on the screen now.
Oh, let's work together. Well done.
I'm happy to second this motion.
Councillor Kellyanne, do you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would, Madam Mayor. As I've sort of outlined in the background to the motion, the main concern is around the impacts of some of the lack of nuance in the various SEPs that exist, particularly the affordable housing SEP, where because of some of this lack of nuance and the fact that the SEP overrides our LEP and our DCPs, it then leaves us, less able to deliver particular infrastructure that not only benefits the existing residents of these places, but also the incoming residents. And my concern around that is it often then leaves the incoming residents bearing the brunt of community anger or who are more socially isolated. So, a case in point or an example of this is the overriding thought process with regards to parking around affordable housing seems to be that people that live in affordable housing developments don't require as much parking. However, in areas like ours that are not very well serviced by public transport, often these people do rely very heavily on vehicles to get to places of work, to take their kids to sporting or other commitments, or to have visitors over, which then creates sort of friction amongst neighbours or other residents in the street. That's just one example amongst many of the lack of nuance negatively impacting some of the I guess at its heart underlying positive motivations of some of these policies. So this comes from a place of wanting to advocate for a better outcome for our community as a whole.
Yeah, would the mover and seconder consider
We
removing...
haven't got a seconder yet, so
I was happy to second it.
Thank you.
Would they consider removing in point... Where's it gone? Point 3, that, I think we've done this previously, lobby for us to determine DAs again? Yes, keep the LEP here, but gee, it feels good not determining DAs. And if that stays in, unfortunately I won't support, it's only one person out of 11, but I'm happy that we don't do DAs.
Okay, so the mover and seconder happy to take point 3 out?
Just looking at some wording there. What about if we say...
What wording would you be happy?
Collaborate
Keep the LEP, yeah.
for the decision making through the local government.
Yeah, if you make it clear it's not about DAs.
Have we got the wording? If you're happy to remove point 3, councillor Caliendo?
That doesn't matter.
Point 3 to read, publicly advocate for overall strategic decision making to be returned to local government through the LEP and local planning controls.
And ended there.
All right. Are you happy with that, councillor Chitty? With that change? All right. I'm going to put it only because we're running out of time. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item's in your name, councillor Caliendo.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think pretty much the background explains the purpose of the motion and where it's coming from. I think most councillors and members of the community would agree that, particularly when travelling public transport late at night, that safety can be a concern, whether it's in Liverpool or whether it's anywhere within the public transport network, and removing facilities that not only make a public transport location safer, but also provide a whole range of other benefits is not in the best interest of our community. So I would encourage councillors to support this nomination.
Mayor, I have a foreshadowed motion.
Hold on, we need a seconder.
Oh,
Just a minute.
I will second this.
Just a minute.
hold on.
Yes, councillor did.
I want to have a chat with councillor.
Can I, Mayor, I have a foreshadowed, and I think in this case, I understand. Don't worry about me. Mayor, and I understand you generally wait for the motion, but I think it's important if councillors can see the foreshadowed.
Why don't you speak against the motion and include the foreshadowed in it?
Because
They can do that.
All right, Mayor. So I'll speak against the motion. Not that I want to speak against the motion because I understand the concerns that are raised, but I think it's important to note a few points. That yes, Sydney Trains is removing the gate array control, the GAC, at Liverpool Station to extend the Opal gates and install a customer service hub. That patronage continues to grow across the Sydney network. We know that, with Liverpool Station recording a 6% increase in Opal taps over the last financial year. Additionally, the Opal gates will help customers and staff move more quickly and safely through the station. GAC booths were installed several decades ago and predate the introduction of Opal and contactless payments, with many of the operational functions such as ticket checking no longer required. Customer service hubs have been installed across the network to improve customer service. They allow staff to access IT and real-time customer service system whilst being more readily available on the concourse or platform to answer customer queries. That the customer service hubs are already in place at Central, Town Hall, Wynyard and other large stations across the network. That the removal of the GAC booths follows an extensive safety and risk assessment and consultation with staff, including the identification of an alternative safe location for customer service staff in the event of an emergency. That the GAC booths were never intended as safety booths. They were designated areas for staff to monitor and control gate access. That the Police Transport Command was established in May 2012. Transport for New South Wales has partnered with the PTC on initiatives to reduce the levels of violence directed at customer service and staff. There are currently 129 CCTV cameras at Liverpool Station, all linked back to the Security Control Centre. These cameras provide a high level of security than was available when the GAC were installed. I mean, at the end of the day, it's worded, and I don't mean anything. The motion is worded as if these things are being removed, let's lobby, let's change, let's do everything. But yes, there are changes being made. There's 129 security cameras. There's another safety point being installed in there. So it's not just we're removing and we're doing nothing about it. There's reasons why it's being removed. There's another safety area that's going to be put into place. And I don't believe that we should be supporting a motion that says whatever it is it's saying there, given the information from the Minister's office that says this is what we're actually doing at Liverpool Station. So I don't believe, and I stand to be corrected, that the motion as written is correct, and then action is being taken. So I'd encourage you not to support the motion, and then hopefully the foreshadow goes up and we'll note all those points that are on the record.
Thank you so much.
Madam Mayor, can I just clarify something very quickly? So I understand security is one element of the Minister's response, but is the new area going to also fulfil some of the other uses of the garrison as it exists? So, for example, administering first aid, protecting lost children, is that going to be the format of the new space?
My understanding is there will be a new space that people can go to in case of an emergency, so one would hope that they could do what they're currently doing now.
Councillor Haggerty, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, if we're going to build a space that does the same thing, why are we wasting taxpayers' money pulling something down and building it somewhere else? Also, in regards to CCTV, they're good after the fact. They're not preventative. Let's not wait for someone to get attacked and then have a look on the camera to find out who did it. Let's stop it happening by putting them in a safe space that already exists. I support Councillor Caliander's motion.
Thank you. We've had 2 speakers for and a speaker against. Have we any other speakers against? Okay, do you wish to write a reply, Councillor Caliander?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm sure there's all sorts of plans afoot in terms of what is going to be done with that space. However, I think it's really important that we advocate for our community and get some of our objections on the record when it comes to what sort of facilities we would like our community to have access to when it comes to public transport in particular. So, I think it's important that we write to the Minister and actually say this. We know that these things are important and we would not like any reduction of facilities. I understand that you've received a response from the Minister. However, writing to them and requesting that information formally, I feel is important.
Thank you. We've had the right reply. I'm going to put the motion as moved by Councillor Caliander and seconded by Councillor Haggerty. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Call it carried. Next item is in the confidential document. Yes, no, yes, it is, she says. On page 1449 of your confidential document.
Move that way.
Thank you. We get a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, just a question through to the CEO or to the director. Does council ever request that these be undertaken by like I mentioned, Fire and Rescue New South Wales? Do we actually make referrals to them? We don't. You sure? Sorry.
Mr. Moore?
Through the CEO, we work closely with them when fire issues are identified, but I'm not aware of any occasion where we've referred the compliance upgrades to achieve fire safety back to Fire and Rescue New South Wales, if I've understood your question correctly.
My understanding is council has made a request of a building owner stating that we're coming out with fire rescue because we've asked them to come out and check the works. So is it them that are undertaking the checking or is it us? And that's where I say referral in relation to that. Are we actively calling fire rescue saying go out and inspect something?
Through the CEO, no, that's what I was referring to, the sort of collaboration we do together with Fire and Rescue to determine the nature of any fire safety issues. But as far as remedying those, it's council that serves orders and works with the building owner then to rectify any deficiencies in the building.
Okay, we've got to move in a seconder. Any other discussion? I'm going to put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on page 1459.
I'll move that way, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chitty. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Did. Any opposition? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on 1532.
Move that way, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shilton.
I will second that one, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm still turning the page. Any opposition?
Just a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, certainly.
In relation to attachment 1, which is proposed to be inserted in zoning certificates, has there been any research anything that suggests what effect the insertion might have on property values? I think I know what the answer is, but I'm just curious as to whether there's any feedback on that, the implications of putting that statement onto zoning certificates.
Zoning remains materially the same, councillor, and of course if the process then becomes one of compulsory acquisition, council has very strict requirements under which we compulsorily acquire that protects the landowner's property value interests.
I'll still move the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item's on 1552.
Was that unanimous?
It was.
Let's note it that way,
Okay.
please.
Okay, on page 552.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shelton. Seconded.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Carney.
Sorry, just in relation to that,
Mm-hmm.
and correct me if I'm wrong, have we done testing on that, on those parcels prior? Do we test those parcels prior to acquiring them?
Testing for contamination, is that? I have to take on notice in relation to those specific parcels. Generally, when we purchase land, we make that, but this is acquisition for the case of road widening. Mr Morgan, are you aware whether there's been any contamination reports in relation to these parcels of land?
Through the CEO, the normal process we go through is confirm that. I had to take that on notice with this particular parcel.
Okay, thank you. Any opposition?
It does say, for whatever it's worth, the land has been valued by a valuation firm.
Yeah, but it's not.
I think we'll take that on notice, councillors. I'm going to put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. We're now moving into two confidential items under section 10.2E of the Act. I thank the members of the public for attending, and at this point will be asked to leave.
So what are we moving into?
Closed session.
Confidential, and they were those.
Session moved that there'll be a new terms of reference for the Intermodal Committee. Point 2, that the Intermodal Committee be now known as the Intermodal Precinct Committee. And point 3, on the completion of the terms of reference, that expressions of interest be called for membership of this committee. The next item is question 6, as raised by Councillor Chitty, and was moved and seconded and adopted, that the CEO be directed to instigate a policy which assists residents to utilise the new parking meters. Having done that, they were the 2 motions moved, and no other business was had. The meeting is now closed. Thank you.